Oh my god, I love that so much. I was so tempted to ask about the gangbang, but I stopped.
Yeah, yeah. Tell us more about the gangbang, you fucking hoe bag. She's horrible.
I mean,
Now, these people can never take a joke. The Jews, but it's okay for them to joke about everybody. Fuck them.
I
Sorry,
liked it. Personally, it was funny.
no, it's great, but
I
they're pussies.
I like it. I like it when people lose their shit. It makes me laugh.
It didn't take much. It's
I like to just sit back
oh
and
oh
watch people
really,
go a little
Charles?
crazy.
You white person? How does it go, white person?
I
What
love it.
is it?
I
Yeah,
love it when people lose their cool on me because I just have this ability to take it when people go really nuts on me and just become super calm, and it makes them so angry that they go even crazier.
yeah. I had to work on that myself.
Yeah, you tend to be kind of wrathful. I'm like the inverse of it. Like I take the negativity and I just put it in my pocket and save it for later.
You use it for your like little mental jujitsu.
Yeah. I actually get kind of upset when people are not getting upset with things I'm trying to do. I mean, it's like I was trying to get her like really off her cool. And she just kept going crazier and crazier. And I was just like, and then she kept yelling at the other guy who was cutting in, which was even greater.
She thought he was
I
you.
know that was the best part of it.
Yeah, you were just letting it happen too, and I knew you knew what was happening too. I watched you say nothing, and I knew exactly what you were thinking on mute.
So good.
Sex laptop.
Classic.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. She's a sad case.
Yeah, it's typical. It's the right wing casting couch where they pick these people up out of the trash barrel
It's
and then
interesting
make
to me that
like
her
fake
name is
stars out of
Ashley
them.
St. Clair, and yet she's Jewish, right? It's like, how is your name a saint name? Like, what's that about? Oh, it's a fake name. Oh, what's your real name? That was going to be the line of questioning we were going to go
Right.
down.
Nice skin suit you wear there.
Not at all a honeypot,
No, not at all. Not one bit.
you know? I love all these guys who believe that there's such thing as right wing women. They always make me laugh.
Yeah. It's just grabbler football.
So what do we think? So Trump's indicted tomorrow? What do we think?
Yeah, I've been kind of out of the news for a couple of days, but
How was Ojai?
this
I feel like if Maggie Haberman's writing about it, then it must be real, right?
Well, this is the thing.
she's
This is
very
what
credible.
makes me uncomfortable about it is Maggie Haberman's writing about it, and Jake Tapper is on CNN talking about it. So my concern is this going to be the one time that they're right? You know,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, just your opinion, Charles, because I haven't asked you what did he actually have? What documents do you think he had, or do you know that he had, or
So
can
here's my theory.
can
Here's what I think is really going to happen. If you want to know, what I think is really going to happen is Trump will be indicted but not convicted because he'll cut a deal with the prosecutors. Um, and my guess is that they're not going to go after Trump. They're going to go after the network around him. And that's going to be a lot of the weird Israelis and the weird Saudis and their sort of consiglieres that were orbiting around Trump after his presidency. Most likely, Trump's going to be allowed to keep whatever money he's gotten as a condition of being helpful. Because remember, for many years, he was a federal informant stealing money from the mob. And I think the same thing is going to happen here. Most likely, though, I think they're going to go after Kushner. I think Kushner is going to be a very keen target for them. And I think the Bannon stuff is obviously also a part of this as well. So, yeah, that's kind of my read on it. And I think what's happening is all the Israeli assets are freaking out a little bit because they want it to be about Trump, 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 and throwing Trump away and Trump, 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 he's a baddie. And I don't really buy that Trump is necessarily a baddie. I think he's just kind of incompetent. It's kind of my read on him. That he's like venal and incompetent. You have to sort of prove mens rea of him being criminal and him having criminal intent. Um, I also think we just way overclassify things in general. So I'm sort of excited to see him challenge the classification status of a lot of these things. But on the whole, it's really designed to just stop him from running because obviously the system wants Chris Christie versus Joe Biden. That's what it wants. Clearly, the deep state wants to have. They want to each have a person in it in the fight. That's my read on it. I don't know. What do you think, John? You follow these things.
I mean, I think I agree. Yeah, if Trump gets indicted, I think Christie will probably be the nominee. I don't see anybody else getting in with, with the level of national staying power and a fundraising base who can kind of get the MAGA donors to pivot, as you said earlier. So, yeah, I think that's the way it's going to go down.
If Trump is taken down, who do his voters go to? It's hard to see. It's hard to see them all going for.
They go to Vivek. What's his name?
Yeah, Vivek Ramaswamy. Yeah. Ramalama.
So, Chuck, I know you saw the speech by Christie, since you mentioned that about the Kushners. Like, how do you feel about that versus, a Biden presidency, and you still supporting that?
I mean, I think Biden's going to win re-election because I don't think we live in a country that has free and fair elections anymore. Just being blunt about it. And I'm not necessarily opposed to that because I don't know that I necessarily believe in free and fair elections. I just, I want to tell you what I think is going to happen, not what I want to happen. Right? Which is, I think, a big distinction that I have with other people. Like, if it were up to me, I'd be president, right? Like, let's just be real here. So like, all these guys are pretenders at the throne, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I mean, what can I say about this? I mean, I think Trump was an extremely interesting figure because he revealed a lot of how the world really worked. And I think Biden is useful because Biden basically like reset a lot of things within the deep state. But I do think Biden is quite old, and I think aging is not like a linear phenomenon. It's like you hit a wall and then you just fall off the wall. So that's kind of my only concern with Biden. I like a lot of his policies, but I think what's going to happen is the deep state is going to want to run two horses at the same time. And those two horses are going to be Christie versus Biden, who've known each other for 40 years, So there's clearly some aspect of that of what's going on.
So then what do you make, though, about Christie talking about the Kushners in the way he did?
Oh, well, Christie was the first U.S. attorney appointed after 9/11. Christie's very skeptical of the Likud Israelis, which is what Netanyahu is and what Kushner is. That's sort of what their network is. And, Chris Christie came into power. First order of business was putting Jared Kushner's father in jail, which he succeeded in doing. And so, yeah, I think that Chris Christie is going to basically try to do the town hall approach of chatting with voters and engaging with them, which is why a lot of us started to like Chris Christie in the basically right after he became governor of New Jersey, where he would do these town halls with all these people and engage with people. And I think people want that kind of like engagement style politics. I think that's why the success of these spaces has happened, is that people like to engage with each other. And
I mean, I felt like a little bit of like Ross Perot in when he said the whole Kushner, because he's like, look what they're doing over here, like it's almost like people don't know. I mean, people do know, but it's like to have somebody on that stage talk about that, I think is not benign. It's important.
Yeah, I mean, look, the question becomes, what is Christie, right? So Christie is going straight at Trump, who he's known for all these years. And when you know somebody for a long time, you know their weaknesses, right? So I think Christie has a lot to offer. I think he's compelling in a way that Mike Pence is not compelling. Just being honest about it. I don't know anyone clamoring for a Nikki Haley presidency or a Tim Scott presidency. I don't think either one of those really work. So the question then...
What's Bobby Jindal up to these days?
Yeah, exactly. What is he up to? Who cares? So these people are just not serious people, right? So the question becomes, who's a serious person? Who's done serious things in their life? And I'd argue that Chris Christie, as a U.S. attorney, is a pretty serious person. And a governor of a blue state for 2 terms, pretty serious guy. So I don't know. That's kind of how I look at it.
I look at the Tim Scott and the Nikki Haley thing as if I'm looking at like Ben Carson and Carly Fiorina in like 2016, where it's like, I mean, I understand you have to like.
They actually seem lower quality than the two of them. actually.
Yeah, I just mean like liquidating the pool a little bit. You know, they do kind of have to like expound upon like which candidates they're going to try to run, at least in a primary, and make it seem competitive. But I think they already know who they're going to actually run.
Yeah, the question becomes like, why is Cornel West running? You know, why is RFK running? And I think these people are fake opposition. Because I think that people kind of realize that the Biden policies are basically the Trump rhetoric. You know, that's why people like Jeff Garcia endorsed Biden, who was a Peter Thiel guy helping with Trump in 2016.
Yeah, I know Jeff.
Yeah. So I think Jeff is correct. You know, like I looked at Jeff's column, sort of helped him a little bit with it, or some of the ideas behind it. And I think it's basically correct that Biden is the delivery. Biden is the Make America Great Again candidate. But then the question becomes like, what happens if he falls or dies or whatever? You know, that to me is a really interesting question.
If God forbid it were to happen in the next year and a half, you know, what happens with Kamala? I mean, would she take up the reins and run herself? I mean, it
yeah,
seems
it's a
to
good
be
question.
the running assumption, but you never know, right?
It's a great question. What's going on there? So I don't know. I go back and forth on these things, you know. My basic takeaway, though, looking at it just kind of objectively, is I think the media always gets to anoint a candidate, and the question becomes who do they anoint in this race on the Republican side? Seems to me the only one they can't anoint is Christie. Right? Culturally, they're not going to endorse the hick from Indiana. He's, you know, that, you know, they just can't. It's like not going to happen. Ron DeSantis is too aggressive towards them and too weird, and so he's not going to be the one. And he's going to want to basically talk only in his right-wing echo chamber of Twitter or Fox. So you just run the numbers, and it's like, who's the only one who can go anywhere and will talk to anyone? And that's Christie. For better and for worse.
Just thinking about wild cards, you know, who could self-finance an independent run that we're not thinking about?
Nobody, really. Nobody could really do it at this stage because nobody really has the cash to do it. Right? So like if you see, you know, the pandemic produced all these new billionaires, right, because of the Fed policies. But as the Fed raises interest rates, it's harder for anyone to justify running for office. Right? It's kind of a Hail Mary pass. There's no like billionaire oligarch who can kind of do the Trump thing again. No, none of them would want to try it either. Because the
It's kind of like if
risks.
you're running a political campaign, you actually have to run a political campaign and not use it as a money laundromat on the side.
Yeah, well, or the question is like, why did Michael Bloomberg run for president in 2020? Right. There's one theory of the case, which is that he ran for president because he thought he could win. I don't believe that. I don't know anyone who really does believe that. I think he ran to create a world-class voter operation, and that was basically essential for the Democrats kind of only narrowly losing the House in 2022. So, you know, there's a lot of these things where I don't think the game works as people think the game works, would be the way I would put it. Right? So, like, what does the Republican Party need right now? It needs somebody who's a lawman because it has all this criminal shit going on. And so, who's going to be that lawman? Right? It's going to be the fat boy. It's going to be the fat boy. Or as former President George W. Bush called him, Big Boy. That's who it's going to be. You know. And Trump's arguments against Christie is that he's fat. Okay. Well, like a lot of us are fat.
Christie already put that
I
to
love
bed
that
today.
quote that Christie had. He said, "Hey, everybody knows that I've struggled with my weight for the last 20 years, but I ain't struggled with my character." And I thought that was so perfect for him to come back like that.
Yeah, that was pretty good, wasn't it? You know? I also think he offers the Republicans a path through the suburbs that they're probably not going to have anymore. Because the white suburbanites are basically Democrats now, unfortunately, except in major cities, or except in like some of the southern cities. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be mathematically, it's going to be very, very hard for the Republicans to win the 2024 cycle. You know, they have to win Georgia, Arizona, and Wisconsin. They have to sweep them. And right now, I don't see any candidate that can do that.
What did you think of Christie's comments about Trump voters and how they're not his voters, but he thinks they're all his voters? I think they kind of are.
What do you mean? You mean what he said something to the effect of like that there is no like voter that is Trump's voter?
Yeah, he said, this whole part about, what are Trump voters? Like, there's people who voted for him, and I voted for him twice, but, he does not own them. People can do, what they want, but I think a large portion of them kind of are Trump's voters, because they certainly don't seem to have the wherewithal to go anywhere else.
I guess the question that you have to ask yourself is, where are people going to keep voting for somebody who's lost? Right. And that's an interesting question. I don't know. I mean, this is, of course, the events are so fluid, right? Going into this election cycle. And it seems to me that Trump has a potential indictment on his hands. He's got, lingering financial difficulties that are kind of becoming an issue. And so, yeah, it just seems to me the U.S. deep state is going to not allow Trump to be a candidate. However you feel about him, right? And candidly, I've always kind of liked Trump. I'm one of those few people in the country that likes Biden and Trump, and there must be millions of us, because otherwise how do you explain the outcome? But I don't know. I have grave reservations as to whether or not Trump is capable of course correcting. And it seems to me that he did a lot of favors for Netanyahu and for the Saudis. And to see Jared Kushner and be brought up in the way where he called her Jared and Ivanka Kushner, thought that was very interesting. I saw that, the fact that Christie just kind of laid right into them, the grift with the family is breathtaking. That was long overdue by a Republican presidential candidate. And it was kind of thrilling, apparently. I had a cousin that was in the room, because I'm from Massachusetts, as many of you know. And I had a cousin that was there who told me that, like, it was very interesting to observe. My cousin's a Joe Biden fan, but somehow he managed to get in the room. So make of that what you will. I don't know. My read right now, though, is that Christie is going to command the earned media market in a way that Trump cannot. So remember, Trump was able to go anywhere in 2016 because he had no real record. And so he could basically talk and deliver his speeches, go on any podcast or whatever, any show out there. And that's not going to be how he's going to campaign in 2024. He's going to want to control his media exposure.
Oh, yeah. Left-wing media was just as responsible for Trump getting elected in 2016 as anyone else.
Yeah, I think they were the reason he was elected. I think Jeff Zucker, who's very tied in with the Israelis, who was running CNN, was critically important.
I think it's interesting that Chris Licht, whatever, is out at CNN now. Not surprising, but interesting.
I just don't think it's possible to win these races in the TV. Like, I don't think the TV business model works anymore, just generally.
No.
Like, who do you know who, like, actually watches TV? That isn't, like, over 60. Like, if you go to a boomer's house, the TV is always playing. But most other people's houses, it's not really playing.
Yeah.
And that is assuming you don't believe that the deep state is coming for Fox. And I definitely believe the deep state's coming for Fox, which is what the Smartmatic lawsuits and the Dominion lawsuits are all about. So I don't know.
Did anyone watch Tucker's whatever, his show?
Yeah, we watched that. We talked about that the other night, but it was pretty depressing, I've got to say.
Same
It
old
was like
shit.
it was really depressing to see how much he's fallen. You know, and it looks like he's going to get sued over it.
For breaching contract or what?
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like he's in real trouble. Somebody was sending me a story about that, and I was like, I don't know. I think he's in trouble. I don't think you can like just ignore your contract. You know?
Not when it's a contract with a company like Fox. No.
I mean, they have every incentive to scapegoat him right now, right?
Yeah.
So, do you think Fox News is dead these days? Like, is it dead for the future?
It's hard to see a future for it, isn't it? I mean,
well, when Bill O'Reilly, people said that about Bill O'Reilly, and they found their people.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems to me like they have real problems.
Oh, definitely.
Tucker was a kind of Gen X figure that could kind of breach generations, but he went increasingly kind of crazy. So I don't know. My basic read on Tucker, for what it's worth, is somebody that's known him a long time, and I used to work with him at the Daily Caller or whatever. Is the dude genuinely lost his mind like a few years ago? He's not the same dude. I don't know if that's like a personal thing or if he was blackmailed. I've heard that he has sort of extra, he has other women around. That's kind of like the rumor on the street. So I could see a situation where he would get blackmailed over that. He's also got that close relationship with Arthur Schwartz, who I've talked about before. So I don't know. My read on Tucker is that he's kind of a tragic figure, as a lot of these people are. It's an unfortunate thing.
Yeah, I mean, he has potential. He definitely has potential, but you got to use it in the right way, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of sort of obsession with like the numbers that Tucker supposedly got, and I'm not sure that I believe them. Just being honest
like on
about
his episode.
Yeah, like there's a lot of numbers that we all know are kind of fake that people kind of claim about their shows or whatever.
like what Elon Musk just did with the Daily Wire, where he very obviously
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's just like a lot of fake numbers. So yeah, my read is that basically Tucker's a fraud. But I think the whole Fox enterprise is fraudulent.
Yeah, and I think that not having Roger Ailes, who could kind of develop talent and had the vision, whether you agree with it or not, he was
Yeah, I mean, I knew Roger, as people know, and Roger and I were very we were very friendly. He used to call me up as his token millennial and ask me questions, and I never went to go work for Fox simply because I didn't really believe in the product. I don't like cable television. I think it's bad for people, makes them sedentary and stupid, basically. But anyway, so he used to call me up, but he had a kind of Midwestern sense of when enough was enough. He would always he knew what his limits were and what the network's limits should be. And I don't think Tucker really had that. I think Tucker was basically running around doing wild stuff.
Yeah, one of the things about Tucker that has become his calling card is this laugh. And it's weird.
Yeah, it's definitely contrived. By the way, he did not have it when I was working with him.
Right. It reminds me a little bit about that great movie from the 80s, Amadeus, where they depicted Mozart.
Oh yeah.
um,
Yes, I remember that. Yep.
but it's weird. It's between I don't know. There's a cackle quality to it, but then there's an almost hysterical quality, and
It feels very female, to be honest with you.
yeah, and it's just odd. And I excuse me. I was just thinking about Tucker. Ostensibly, he seems, put together. He dresses in a kind of Brooks Brothers or J Press fashion. He's obviously an intelligent person and etc. But there does seem to be this like hidden shadow self of Tucker that is hysterical and desperate. And we all have kind of like our darker halves. I can, as maybe some people have seen, I can kind of, my fuse can kind of go off, and I can become a real
You having a darker side, Richard? I'm shocked.
Yeah, I've got yes. There's a what is that, an XS song? Real Gen X hours here, like devil inside, devil inside. Every single one of us got the devil inside. Yeah,
Yes.
he has like an hysterical, like 65-year-old woman inside or something. It's not a devil, and so one thing that I have noticed about him, and if you just look at this really, I think overall just sad video that he put out, there's this like desperation and sense that nothing's lost. Like I've complained about this before. You've echoed it. If I get a little bit tired of people like just endlessly yammering about how the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about something. And it's like, okay, I get it. You're right. Stipulated. Like, now let's hear what you have to say. And he does that about like how they just won't listen. They won't talk to you. They'll kill you if you talk about things that aren't on their agenda. And then there's also this kind of desperation of like the Democrats, they've replaced the American public. There's nothing we can do. They want us to like Zelensky, but all he's doing is killing Russians. And it just keeps going. There's this theme of like helpless desperation that I think is the kind of like impulse underneath everything he does. And to be fair, we all kind of feel like that sometimes. Okay, but when you just hear that over and over and over again, it becomes this whiny, pathetic, just like there's nothing we can possibly do. Everyone who is against us is some kind of sadistic villain, and we're all helpless victims. And it just becomes like, okay, like go throw yourself off a bridge. Like if this is your theory of the case, then have at it. Like, what do you like? I don't know. There's just something so demoralizing about Tucker that I just have grown to really hate him.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I
my
mean, I think
that's
that's
my
right.
perspective on him. I hate him in the sense that like, okay, shut up. You have nothing to say outside of like vague insinuations about like fucking aliens, and the Russians are good and everyone else is evil, and there's nothing we can do, and the mainstream media is not just kind of dumb or conformist, which is clearly they are, but like they're evil too. And it's just like, I'm just tired of this shit, basically. I hope he fucking
Well, I
fails.
think
And
I
shit
think
on
a
Santa.
lot of life. I think a lot of life is knowing where your exits are,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think for everything there's a season, and I think that the problem with Tucker is that I think it's very hard to do a show day in, day out for an hour a day.
Yeah.
and you run out of content,
Yeah.
and it makes it very hard not to be repetitive.
Yes.
And I think this is something you see with people who have daily columns, where they seem to just sort of say the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
I think this is a real problem.
I get
Basically,
tired of things and then I just move on in some totally new direction. I think I have a bit of a short attention span, but it's maybe a medium attention span. Like I'll really hammer at something,
well, I think
and then I'll
this is
just be
why
like, all right,
neither.
I want to do something totally different now.
Yes, but I think this is why neither one of us could ever be mainstream,
Right.
right? And like I've made my peace with that.
Oh,
Frankly, like I'm actually very happy to not be mainstream, because I think that there's a lot of responsibilities that come with it
Yeah.
that I'm not capable of addressing. But I would rather be in small groups working on important things and then having my ideas radiate out.
Yes.
So that's sort of how I've come to appreciate life. And I actually think that there are certain jobs where you get the money from them and they actually ruin you, because you'll never get paid that much again, right? You'll never be, that's like the end of your career, right? It's like, how many people have like had a good life post Fox?
Right.
Not many.
No.
Not many. And I think that Tucker's problem in general is that Tucker was a young man when he got this job, right? He was like in his late 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that he was promoted and he got the nation's attention during the Trump years. And he should have, the duplicitous nature of him saying one thing to his audience and one thing to his friends was eventually going to catch up to him, right?
Mm.
It's like kind of like having a lack of integrity. And in some sense, Fox itself has a lack of integrity.
Yeah.
So
I think they hate their
that's
audience.
kind of my
I
read
think
on it.
they, maybe hate is too strong a word. I think they have a strong amount of contempt for their audience,
Well, of
as they
course.
should in many ways. But like,
That's dark, but I tend to agree.
yeah. Well, it's just, yeah.
Well, it's hard to respect people who are servile and bovine.
Yeah, it is.
You know,
But it seems like you
if you
should try to make them
behave like
better.
if you behave like a cow, should you be surprised that people treat you like a cow?
Right. But it just seems like you should try to make them better. And I think maybe, to be fair to Tucker here, at his best, he was interested in alternative ideas. And you could see that on his web show where he would, let's have Mencius Moldbug on. And let's have some
No. That whole
goofball.
project was all of that was Lachlan Murdoch trying to build up Fox Nation, which was the pet project of Lachlan.
Right.
Because Rupert wanted to give him a little responsibility, and Fox Nation was Tucker's and his kind of side project, and it didn't really work.
Well, as Tucker said in those clips that were leaked, maybe by Lachlan, he was just like, no one's signing up for this and the website sucks. Why don't we just put it on YouTube? Which, you can't, I mean, I'm certainly not the first to say this. This is a mainstream opinion, but like cable news is powerful and it still does have authority. And Tucker is infinitely more powerful on Fox than he is off it. But we are kind of biding our time here and just waiting for it to fall. And it will. Because at some point, these people are going to start dying. And I don't think millennials or even Gen Xers are going to start subscribing to cable. I mean, I don't even know how to subscribe to cable.
I know,
I would
right?
need to call up like a company and be like, all right, could I get cable in my house? And I'm sure I can, but like, I don't even, the notion of doing that. There was a joke, I remember.
This shit's expensive too.
Yeah.
Like Where I live, when I looked at this at one point, it's like $150 a month.
I know, but at the same time, you subscribe to, HBO Max for Game of Thrones.
I don't subscribe. I don't subscribe to any of that shit.
Mhm.
I watch all that shit illegally. Fuck them.
You just confessed to a crime.
Oh well, arrest me. I mean,
Hey, you know what a serious crime it is if you've ever watched that old Jim Carrey movie, The Cable Guy. It's very serious.
Right.
super serious.
I've actually never
Yeah.
seen that one, but I've heard it's a classic.
Oh, that's a classic. Yeah, it's a classic.
But yeah, like
Great.
they're gonna go away. And they're these 30-year cycles of power, where the nightly news at 5 p.m., I guess it was 5 p.m. Central or something like that when I was growing up in Texas, that had a cycle where it was authoritative and powerful, but it goes away. And 9/11 was kind of its death knell in a way. Because I remember, on 9/11, people were going back to let's listen to Peter Jennings or Tom Brokaw or Dan Rather. We want these authoritative voices. But over the past 20 years, those have faded. And I can't even name a nightly newscaster, even though they get a lot of views. Those programs have millions of people watch them, more than watch cable news, but they have no authority or anything like that. I guess Lester Holt, isn't that I don't know. But cable is running on fumes in that way. But what exactly replaces it is questionable.
Well, it's just weird to me. I know Caitlin Collins. Okay, Caitlin Collins used to date Matt Gaetz, and I know her. I've talked to her.
She worked at the Daily Caller for a while.
She worked at the Daily Caller, and she's not the anchor. I'm sorry,
Yeah, that's kind of.
And
I
think
actually thought she did a pretty good job actually in the Trump town hall.
I mean, she did okay, but you can't do okay. You have to be great.
Well, she's just not great. I mean, I don't even want to make this some dump.
No. Here's how I would say it. Right? Is that a lot of us grew up in an age where, since we were children, all of our naughty bits were broadcast on the internet, on that social experiment known as Facebook.
Yeah.
And so there's no mystery, and because there's no mystery, there's no authority.
Yeah.
That comes with public presentations. You become authentic in different ways, by being vulnerable, by being honest, by being accurate over time, by building real relationships with people.
Yeah.
All of that is basically impossible through the medium of television.
Yeah.
Television has a way of flattening you and trying to make you. Everyone's trying to basically be Tom Brokaw, right? Or they're trying to be certain people. And the world just doesn't work that way anymore.
Yeah. I don't. It is interesting, though. I mean, there's something. I've talked a lot about this on my own podcast, but the Technological Society by Jacques Ellul, which is an interesting book, but its conclusion effectively was that you have to have rituals, or excuse me, I'm describing the thesis from propaganda, but what he called propaganda is not what most people call propaganda. Propaganda is the nightly news. Propaganda is the notion that you wake up in the morning and you'll read your local paper. Maybe you'll read the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, or the San Fran Chronicle, or something like that. And that kind of tells you what's happening, what's fit to print, and et cetera. And then at the end of the day, you watch the nightly news, and that kind of sums everything up in a televisual encapsulation. And that's it. Your life is regimented. And we needed something like that after the decline of religion as an institution, where you would go to church on Sunday. The priest would be the authority figure. We needed a new authority figure, and that came out in these broadcasters, etc. Now, those people have been diminished in many ways due to their own failings, in some ways due to technological change, in some ways due to things beyond their control, but they have been diminished. And so it's like, where do we get an
and
authority
taste
figure?
taste has shifted too.
Yeah. So where do we find an authority figure? And I, a lot of people that going onto the internet, I remember all of this about how great this was and how people don't care about the mainstream media anymore, and they're open to alternative politics. See, I used to believe that, and now I don't, because it's like, where are they going? They're going to QAnon or Steve Bannon's War Room,
Yeah, people. I mean, look,
or whatever. It's a disaster.
People love joining cults.
Yeah.
Right. Like, we just need to be honest about that. Because it's how people actually are. Yeah. And what's happened is we have a proliferation of cults that people kind of subscribe to in different ways, right? Through their time, through their attention, through their money in some cases, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, Glenn Greenwald runs a cult.
Oh yeah.
Like, we don't want to call it that, but that's what that is.
The cult. Are you talking about liberal fascism? Were you talking about his movie career or journalism?
Yeah, I mean, and there's a reason why so many of these people, like the sextop laptop woman, Ashley St. Clair, it's like there's a reason why so many of them are ex-porn stars.
Yeah.
Or involved with pornography, because
is
they
she
produce
really?
a kind of porn. Oh yeah.
Who?
Yeah.
Really? That's interesting.
Who was a former porn star?
Ashley St. Clair.
That girl did porn?
Yeah.
Do you know she's Jewish?
Laptop. Yes, she is.
I didn't know that.
Wow.
St. Clair, like Charles said, the fuck?
So it was
which
funny.
Jewish
I
person has a
hopped
Christian?
into a space very briefly last night because I found the space rather disappointing. And she was afraid of being seen in the space with me. She was like, "Oh my God, Richard Spencer's in this space." And I was like, I'm just listening, and this is actually kind of boring. So, like, don't worry. But anyway, isn't she kind of young?
So she got very cross with me a second ago. Yeah, she had a child out of wedlock. There was like a whole to do about this, and
oh my
anyway,
God.
As one does.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's understandable and forgivable, but it's just like it's funny where they find these girls.
Well, I mean, so much of the right is a casting call.
Yeah.
Whether that be Peter Thiel's operation, or that be, Michael Ovitz and the casting couch of CAA, or I mean, this is just how it is, right? Daily Caller was a casting couch of a sort.
Yeah. I mean, again, in all of this context, I think Caitlin Collins is like pretty decent, to defend her a little bit.
Yeah, but she's not a serious person.
Yeah,
she's a child. She's a child. Like, let's be honest about it. Like,
sure,
it's fine.
Sure.
It is what it is, right? Like, she's a 31-year-old from Alabama, right? Like, she's not the, she's not the person.
No.
And we all kind of know that, but we all kind of, like, she's on TV, so we sort of accept her up to a point, but, like, it doesn't really work.
Yeah. The St. Clair, so there are, nothing dies on the internet. There's porn out there of her.
It's my understanding, yes. Are you going to go look for it? I mean, what do you?
No, I don't. I'm not that interested. I'm just kind of curious. No, I'm not. I'm not saying this is a joke. No, I'm not that attracted to her, but I'm curious. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think. What was I going to say about it? Yeah, I mean, she's just one of these people that you meet that is.
When you first when you first said the thing about the 4 Jews opinion or whatever it was, so I didn't know what was happening, and she's like, Chuck, why don't you speak about that? And then it's quiet, and then you go, so the sex laptop or the sex thing, and then it's quiet again, and I thought that was pretty funny.
What is the sex laptop? Are we talking about Hunter Biden here?
No, so her nickname, or her like nom de whatever was sex laptop.
Nom de
And
chambre.
I don't know, you know. I mean, I don't even know if her name is Ashley St. Clair. I don't
That
know.
seems a little too cute or something.
Um,
Kind of sounds like a stripper name, Ashley St. Clair.
It
yeah,
sounds like a porn name
Yeah.
for sure.
yeah. So anyway, so she got fired from Turning Point for basically being connected with the stripper world, or like the. And by the way, like I'm not opposed to people
I
doing.
thought she was fired because she took a picture with like Nick Fuentes and some other people.
Maybe there was that reason too, but anyway, I shared it in the chat, and I'll put it up on the jumbotron. But anyway, I vaguely know who this person is,
Mhm.
right? So when she was going off on me, I was just sort of like, yeah, I'm not really interested in you going off on me. And so I just sort of like sat back and waited for her to melt down, which of course she did. And it was fantastic.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, like the point I was making just generally is that like I don't think we live in an era that has rock stars or TV anchors
No.
or like I think we actually live in a world in which leadership comes from just leading and being your authentic self, even if it's a complicated version of your authentic self. So, like fat Chris Christie actually, or weak and old Joe Biden actually become more admirable leaders than a kind of fake strongman in the form of Trump,
Yeah.
or a kind of fake articulate black guy in the form of Obama. Like those Obama and Trump seem like they're part of the same phenomenon, which is this person that's like perfect and tough and has no blemishes or whatever. I just don't think that's how this works anymore.
Romney was the last person where there was no possible scandal that could have been found. Because
Well,
of his Mormon
I don't
upbringing.
know. I mean, I think he was very Mormon, but he was also a crook, like financially, rather clearly. I mean, private equity. Like, let's not defend it.
I'm
Like,
not defending it.
it's
I'm saying that he apparently has never had an extramarital affair.
yeah. He would have been more interesting, and he would have been president if he had.
True. But remember back
Because he was a little too Mormon, right? Like we didn't trust him because he was Mormon,
right.
and he was a little too perfect.
But remember
And
back, who was the candidate? They made a movie about him with Hugh Jackman. He was from Colorado.
oh yes, Gary Hart.
Hart. And he had this extramarital affair, which was kind of tragic and romantic. Like they were.
Allegedly. There's some debate as to whether or not that even happened.
Oh, interesting. Okay. But
Yeah,
all
whether
I'm
he was set
saying
up
is
or
that
something.
that
Yeah.
was reported in the Washington Post, and that was too much for the public. And it was kind of like, for the love of God, can you not like cut someone some slack? I mean, it's not like he's doing drugs and there's a dead hooker in his trunk or something. Like he's like, had a midlife crisis or an unhappy marriage or something. It's like a
No, and
extremely
he stayed
forgivable indiscretion.
and he stayed with his wife until her death.
Yeah.
In 2021, Oletha, I think her name was, or Letha or something like that. Yeah, he was an interesting cat. I mean, he was a naval intelligence officer, if I recall correctly, and I think he was taken out in all kinds of weird ways by the Roger Stones of the world.
Fuck him. He's just such a horrible human being.
Yeah, in a just country, he'd be executed.
He is just truly awful.
Yeah, I think Gary Hart thing was like the start of, because it was originally reported by it was like some Miami newspaper reporter, and Yeah, I think there was like this actual kind of loving affair going on, but I don't know. I think that started the slip into, you know, journalism, quote unquote, um, getting into people's personal shit like that, and we've
Yeah,
seen its effects.
yeah.
I saw an interview with the
But in
mistress a
terms of the
few years ago.
question, what, say again?
Yeah, hold up, Polly. Polly, explain what you were saying. I didn't catch all of that.
Oh, I saw an interview with the mistress a few years ago, and she was pretty young at the time, but yeah, it was a legit affair, but yeah, I think it was an interview with
Don,
her in
Don,
Minnesota.
Donna Rice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, Donna
Rice.
Rice.
and the reporter who
I mean,
originally, did the story, but yeah.
the fact that I don't, it was like a puritanical America. I think Mitterrand
She was dating.
at his
She was
funeral,
dating Don Henley.
his
She was
mistress and his
dating
wife
Don
walked
Henley.
hand in hand to the coffin.
Yeah,
I mean,
so she was
there's a certain kind of French civilization that understands that a good mistress, can save a marriage.
Yeah.
Americans just, it's
Well,
like
the way
we're
it was
either
explained to me with my French
puritanical
friends.
or we are like debauched, and it's one or the other, and that's just not serious at the end of the day. It's like either we're hyper puritanical or we are like, we don't care if you want to engage in scatological nonsense or something. It's just horrible.
I think
It really
publicizing
is.
the whole thing lowered the standards in its own way. Like it was this shameful
Anyway,
moment, so mainstreamed it.
Richard, can you hear us? Richard,
Richard.
can you hear us? No, I don't think he can. I'm gonna drop him down and then bring him back up. Yeah. So, what were you saying, Polly, about the Donna Rice side of it?
Well, she had very much, like, obviously not wanted to be made into such a public figure. I remember in her interview, she talked about it being such a difficult thing for her and this embarrassing thing, and she felt so awful in that way. But she'd met this guy with some friends, and Gary Hart was very charismatic, and
Yeah,
it's interesting to think about where he would have gone if not for that whole scandal. But
yeah, kind of good looking in his way too.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that lowered, I think just, doing the muckraking like that in its way, like, dropped all of our standards. It normalized this whole thing. And, we've become so immune to scandal at this point that, things just don't, at that time, it was such like a, oh my God. And now you find out a politician's banging some 20-some-year-old, and it's just like, well, that's what they do. You don't even blink. But
Yeah, to be honest with you, I am much more French in my attitudes on these things. And, you know, I think that comes from like learning French at a young age. I think there's something kind of the French say it's sort of rude to ask where your wife is between the hours of 5 and 7 p.m. And I'm sort of the view that that's as it should be. And I don't really have any issues with people. I think the American system of requiring so much from your spouse is actually like kind of cruel in some sense. Like your spouse is supposed to be the mother of your children, your confidant, your lover, there's just like a lot of things that we ask of our wives or husbands. And I think maybe that should stop.
I'm a traitor to my gender, and I think if a man cheats, it's kind of like, I'm sorry to the wife or girlfriend, whatever. But I don't think it's as big of a deal. I'm like, I don't know that you should divorce him over it. If a woman cheats, I think it's very different. And yeah, I think women, I don't think it's that acceptable for women to cheat, and I don't think it should be. There's just a whole physicality of it. Like it's a very different thing. If I were a dude and my wife cheated on me, yeah, I would probably not be very nice about it and probably divorce her.
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't care personally. I'm not really a prude on these things. I'm sort of the view generally that we need to be just like way kinder to each other in our personal relationships. That maybe we're actually too quick to throw people out or to kick them on their ass or fire them or whatever.
Let me suggest something. I've just been recently thinking about this French American author named Girard, and he's actually the favorite philosopher of Peter Thiel, as I understand, but I won't hold that against him. But he did teach at Stanford for a while. But this niece,
René Girard,
yes,
yep. who was a French spy. But go on.
Good for him. But this triangulation of desire, where do people genuinely believe in any of these things? Like when you see an image of Gary Hart, heaven forbid he went on a boat with this young woman and they seem to be in love in some way. Maybe it's a infatuation. Or remember that South Carolina politician who went hiking in the Appalachian Mountains or something. There's just something like,
yes, Governor Sanford.
Right, Governor Sanford. There's just something.
Who was sitting next to me when Trump accepted the nomination for the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. It was me and Juan Tom That and Governor Sanford of South Carolina.
But
life is funny.
Yes, there is a kind of, the wife is a victim in this, and yes, it's kind of wrong or whatever. But there just seems to be no real harm. Like, I feel like we mimic scandal. It's not that anyone is actually that infuriated with the crimes of Gary Hart. It's that they see the scandal and they almost dutifully mimic other people's reaction or what they think someone else's reaction to it. So it would get released and be like, oh, well, this is a scandal that's going to end his campaign. Oh, yeah. And they just kind of went along with it. And in a way, everyone was imitating everyone else and no one actually believed it. I mean, not to get too edgy here, but, when you see Pete Buttigieg and Chasten or whatever, a wedding photo, I mean, and everyone's like, oh my God, that's so beautiful. No one actually thinks that isn't anything other than a complete farce. But you want to mimic other people's adoration or their desire. And there's almost this kind of third person out there, like the average American, and you want to be like him or her and go along with it. And I think we've always been kind of mimicking these things, but then we never, no one really calls them out. And if you get called out, it's like a kind of emperor has no clothes situation. I think there's a lot to that. I don't think anyone seriously takes any of this stuff seriously.
Well, I mean, my view is that many of the times these things are fake becauses. right? They're fake justifications for things that other people wanted to do,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just looking for the excuse,
Right.
right? So Me Too isn't really about, grabbing tits that don't belong to you. It's about how the film industry is way weaker, and there's just not enough jobs to sustain it.
Yeah.
So you have to sacrifice some people into the dragon
Mm.
or into the volcano.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the Girard stuff is true, largely.
Mm-hmm.
Things Hidden Since the Foundation of the World is Teal's favorite book, and I read it a number of years ago, and there's some great stuff on Girard's political thought. But my read on it basically is that human beings like to copy each other, and that we can't all have the same stuff. So there's a crisis, these bubbles form,
Mm-hmm.
and then there has to be a scapegoat. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you can choose the scapegoat, other times the scapegoat is chosen for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're thrown off they're indicted by the SEC or thrown into the volcano or executed in the town square.
Yeah.
And my view generally is it actually helps to go through this once or twice and to survive it,
Mm.
because people kind of actually trust you a lot more than if you've never actually been roughed up.
Well, I've been thrown into a volcano, and I
Yeah.
came out
I mean,
like Jesus. Like I
yes.
rose out of the lava. You're welcome, world.
Yes. Same thing.
I'm
Yeah.
back.
Kilauea started erupting again today, so there's
What's
that.
this?
Kilauea started erupting again today, so there's that.
Yeah.
I saw a
There's-
great video from like Deutsche Welle on all of these people throwing the actual goats, like the literal scapegoat, into the volcano and throwing stuff.
Oh, I should post that on the Jumbotron. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, the DW, didn't. I don't think they actually showed a goat thrown into lava. And then there are other people trying to catch the stuff. They would like go down lower and try to catch stuff when Mets, So it is funny, like the scapegoating. There's just this human desire to scapegoat like that, which brings us to the topic of this discussion. Do you think that we're going to just scapegoat Donald Trump? Now, whether he did stuff, and I think he did do some stuff, but in a way that's immaterial.
Oh, and he'll be scapegoated for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the only way to solve the problem of Trump.
But do you think that maybe it's almost a scapegoat that doesn't work? Like we will, so the original scapegoat is you cast your sins onto a actual goat, and then you're relieved and cleansed, figuratively, and some burden is, taken off your shoulders. But I feel like we're going to scapegoat Trump and then not get any of the benefits.
Well, I mean, the question becomes, so Enoch Powell had that line about all political lives end in failure.
Yeah.
And at some point, as Chris Christie says, Father Time is undefeated, right? Like at some point, Trump will die, right? And the same thing is true of, all of us, right? So the question then becomes, how will Trump spend his remaining years? And has the offenses that he committed during his time in the Oval Office, have they precluded him from returning to the Oval Office? And I would say they have.
Yeah.
So
I think this
the
is
question,
real. Every day, I remember hearing all these liberals talk about like the Mueller report is coming and all this kind of stuff. So
none of that was real. Yeah.
all of that, and I waved.
Now
it
the
off.
question is, does Trump have to go to prison for us to have this effect, or is a mere indictment sufficient?
He probably has to die. I don't. Please don't take me the wrong way in the sense of like I'm calling for that or I would engage in this. I know this is a public space.
Yeah, in the novel version of this, he trips and falls into his pool and dies, and the red in the blue water, the red tie of his is the only thing you can see of him. Right?
Well,
there's like
is
a
the pool
reverse, like
filled,
the
or
edge
has
of
the pool
Sunset
been
Boulevard.
drained
There's this like
in order?
reverse shot.
Yeah, maybe the pool's been drained because he's trying to destroy the documents or whatever.
Oh,
But he
he
actually,
jumps into an empty pool. That would be
yeah.
ironic.
So
Yeah.
he falls into the empty pool,
Yeah.
and there's blood everywhere, but you can see the red tie, and the mop of blonde hair.
Wow.
That's the final scene of the second season.
But
You know,
to go back to, like, even if he had such a spectacular demise, I as I said earlier, like, I don't think we're gonna I don't think we're gonna learn anything, or obviously we're not gonna learn anything, but we're not gonna like purge our debts, or you know, like like in some ways J6 could have functioned kind of like that, and but it didn't, because I think the liberals went after it in the wrong way, and then the conservatives, they didn't even, like, they'll talk about like Ashley Babbitt and whatever, but then they'll
it
just
didn't
lie
seem
about
it,
Ashley Babbitt.
it didn't seem dangerous enough.
Right, but they'll they'll
That
they'll
was his
they'll
problem.
they'll, they'll lie about Ashley Babbitt. Like, you know, I tell the truth about, and other people, of course, tell the truth about Ashley Babbitt. She was a flawed person who was caught up in something beyond her understanding, and she was used as a tool by these people, and she was willing participant in it, and she was destroyed by it.
Yeah,
So there's a kind of
she was a willing scapegoat.
yeah, willing, in a kind of pathetic thing. The conservatives will lie about her. She's innocent. She was shot for no reason. According to Tucker, no one will tell us why she was executed. It's like, what in the fuck are you, like, what do you fucking need? They, like, you need them to like blow up the Capitol or something? Like, at what point do you justify her death? The fact is, she did deserve to die, and I'm sorry she did. But like, lying about her is so much worse. Like, at least
Well,
these conservatives could be like,
it's the need for the martyr, right?
well, no, but she's not even a martyr. That's my point. It's the thing is, it's like, if you said something like, we tried this revolution, it failed, but we'll be back next time, and she's a martyr for the cause of like Trumpism. They don't say that. They say she was unjustly executed for attending a rally of conservative Americans or something. Like, they lie about her, and thus they take away all meaning. I just I can't put into words how much I despise conservatives. They just, like, they're not even serious about this, and so there can't be any like actual purging, because they won't be honest about her. And like, even if we kill Trump or whatever, like hang Trump as opposed to Pence, there won't be any release or like ability to move forward.
I think realistically, the people who are responsible for Ashley Babbitt's death are the people who got her there. You know, like, where were her friends? Where was her family? If you see videos that she made of herself going off about this, that, and the other thing, like, this was
She was
clearly a disturbed person.
yeah, she was unwell.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And for these people in her life to have so massively failed her, and
Look at
you
her
know,
mother.
let
Her
her
mother's as batty as she is.
yeah, exactly. Like, you know, you have to ask yourself, like, if you knew your daughter was that disturbed, if you knew wasn't she married and like in some weird like three-way relationship or something like that? I don't remember.
Correct.
But, you know, like, the people who
Yeah,
were
but her
right
mother
there.
is as batty. I mean, there's no one there to pick up the pieces. Like, you can't
Well,
always expect.
it's why her death is fundamentally meaningless.
Yeah. Yeah, which is sad. You know,
Well, but
too bad.
I am not a supporter of J6, just to, as everyone knows. But like, in some ways, it didn't have to be this awful. Like, you could either confess about it and say, you know, she is a flawed victim. She is a victim of herself in many ways, but she was deluded by this cause and she died, and we need to think about, like, there can be a kind of confession, just lay it all out there kind of thing. But they won't do that because conservatives are so fucking cowardly. They're not even willing to like actually do a coup d'etat. They have to do this like I don't want. They have to do this like gay version of a coup.
They're not. That's not what it is, right? Like what they are is they're fed into the meat grinder by Netanyahu
Well, I know,
and
but
Xi.
hear me out here. An actual coup d'état, like you actually do kill Congress and establish authority, etc. Conservatives are so like buffoonish and moralizing and goofy that they weren't even willing to do that, even though they kind of talked about it. And then afterward, and then they do this like on the one hand, like legal machinations with all of these like Federalist Society and Hillsdale professors being like, "Ooh, look, I found a new clause in the Constitution." Ooh. And so they do it like it's gay all the way down. Like like the legal theory is stupid, and then like the actual violence is equally stupid. You know, like Juan Perón is rolling in his grave when he sees this nonsense. It's so insulting to actual coups. But then they pretend that they were innocent. So again, sorry, your good friend Matt Gaetz, who I'll just lay it out there, I don't like very much, to be honest. It's like, oh, it's Antifa. Oh, Nancy Pelosi. Why did it Nancy Pelosi call it? Like, they're so, like, just fucking own it. You have to own things. That's the only way you can move forward, is to own your own mistakes and own your own.
They don't want to move forward
God.
because they are not. That's not what they're a politics of. Right? They're not progressive. Literally, they're conservative.
Oh my dear
so
God.
what do they want to conserve? Defeat.
Right.
I prefer we not call them conservatives. As a conservative myself, who's still wed to my sanity and values, I don't really look at these people and see conservatives. I see a bunch of Republicant fools.
Yeah, but also, also a lot of life is boring, and this spices it up. You know, I mean, why do people do drastic, wild things in their lives? Because life is boring. Because like you have to take out the trash tomorrow. You know, it's like
I understand that. I understand. I think like I think Ashley Babbitt her business was not doing well, and it was like a pool repair or something. You know, we totally fine. I'm not. You know, if you're have a living doing that, that's good. But like,
no, but like Richard,
boring.
A lot of us live lives that are like very depressing and distressing, and some of us even live lives where we make a lot of money, and our lives have no meaning. Yeah. So if the president of the United States calls you to a place to show up, maybe you find yourself getting swept up in that moment.
Yeah.
You know, that's not what's interesting to me about January 6th. What's interesting to me about January 6th is all the little things that were done to kind of make it a wild and crazy time. You know, It feels very 9/11-y. It feels very much of that piece where there were things done to try to cause maximal disorder.
You mean on all sides? Are you suggesting? Like, even
John
knows
supposedly more about this than I do, but yeah, go ahead, John.
Well, I just want to, I guess, remind everybody that there's a very essential kind of chronological connection to Georgia, because on the morning of January 6th, there were still 2 uncalled Senate races, and the power of balance in the Senate was, up for grabs. And so, like, Joe Biden's presidency was kind of hanging in the balance that morning. And so once it became clear that both were going to go blue, there was about a 2-hour delay during which Joe Biden officially nominated Merrick Garland for Attorney General, which is an essential data point as well. And so I think had none or only one or a few of those things happened, I don't know that the events that transpired would have gone down the way they did. And I think maybe some of the other plan Bs and half-baked, plan Cs may have come into play. That's my take on it.
I agree with you.
Interesting.
I agree with you. Yeah, we forget how linked all these things are as they were happening.
So on the morning, just remind me, on the morning the Georgia Senate races hadn't been called yet, the runoffs?
Correct. They were both still too close to call, and there were still 99% or whatever. And I think the networks, I forget which one got called first, but I think by like 11 a.m. or so, they had both been called.
So are you suggesting that if they both went red, then the Coors would have felt like the wins at our sales, like we can actually do this or something? Or is that what you're suggesting?
No, I'm saying maybe you back off. Maybe you say, okay, we have some political capital to spend in the Senate. We can gum things up. We can use our grind things to a halt filibuster power or what have you, or political levers essentially. Or the fact that they would be able to, because at that point it would have been 51-49, like they would have had an outright majority, I think, on committees. It comes, I'm not articulating it well, but it has to do with like establishment of the rules and stuff too, when it's 50-50 versus 51-49. So, not to get too far in the weeds, but I think there was a lot hanging in the balance there. That's, important to consider when we're looking at the whole day. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. Yeah, you're right. Let's see. Yeah, so on January 6, 2021, most major news outlets projected Ossoff the winner in the midst of the U.S. Capitol riot.
Wow. These are important details wow.
Ossoff is the first Jewish senator from the Deep South since Benjamin F. Jonas of Louisiana, who was elected in 1878, and he's the first millennial United States senator. I guess that's true. He is, huh? Quite something.
Ossoff is bland enough, but one thing that annoys the crap out of me about him is it's like he learned to speak from watching Obama speeches.
Ossoff?
Oh, that's like Buttigieg as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
there's something about these people where they just deserve to be smacked on aesthetic grounds. I don't mind that they're getting in there and they're voting the right way and whatever, but just shut the fuck up and vote.
What's that German word? Backpfeifengesicht? Face deserving of a slap is like the literal translation.
Yeah.
Yes. Like Raphael Warnock is like a serious black guy.
Yeah.
And John Ossoff is not a serious person. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But anyway,
the entire millennial race is not serious. I mean, I in some ways don't even blame him or sorry,
yeah.
I'll just have to engage in some millennial bashing.
That's okay. I mean, I just tell the truth about the Gen X while you lie about us.
I'm a geriatric millennial, but
what's that, Polly?
I'm a geriatric millennial, but I consider myself more of the greatest generation.
When were you born?
82.
Oh wow, okay.
Are you
married, Polly?
I am. I'm going through a divorce right now, but.
Oh, good news for me.
Congratulations.
Just kidding.
It's not a fun divorce.
Well, no,
Are you going to win?
Completely awful.
I should win.
Are you going to win, Polly? That's good.
Yeah. Minnesota's divorce laws are awful. They are just, it's a no-fault state. And so basically, someone can beat the shit out of you every day for years. And, 50-50. No one's to blame. It's Minnesota. I'm I'm frustrated. I am writing my local Congress people about divorce laws in Minnesota. But yeah. Anyway.
If I had stayed married, today would be my 10th anniversary of being married. Yeah.
You?
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry.
But these things, life moves on. Every life has tragedy in it. So, onwards and upwards. But yes, I
So
think.
you think by September, Trump will be indicted in Georgia? He will be indicted on the Mar-a-Lago stuff, and we'll learn more about this. I mean, there are these just titillating possibilities with it. With like, are
Yeah,
the Saudis involved?
You don't expend this many resources,
Yeah,
right? Like anyone
You
who's
don't haul somebody back from the freaking Hague.
That's right.
yeah. And
Yeah,
isn't it fascinating as well?
John, explain who Jack Smith is, because I think people need to just get this.
Well, I believe he was a former U.S. attorney in the Middle District of Tennessee, appointed by Obama, if I'm not mistaken, before going across the pond to The Hague for a little bit and investigating war crimes involving human organ trafficking.
Yep.
Which, among other things, one might need to be involved in if one were, say, hypothetically engineering a beta coronavirus as a bioweapon. Hypothetically.
Yep.
So, I think there is some juicy stuff that we're going to find out about that maybe some of these guys have been involved in.
Don't you guys think the PGA Tour is actually connected to that? I mean,
absolutely.
This could
yeah, we
be
talk
a
about this all the time.
fascinating story.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I don't even like golf, but I'm just fucking offended.
Well, as
the
illicit money flows, as the illicit money, valves dry up like Coinbase. I mean, it's going to get dumber before we are able to kind of catch up and shift the equilibrium in our favor, I guess. But it's headed that way, I feel like.
Yeah.
Explain how it works, John. Like, why do people like golf courses? Like, what's that all about?
I don't fucking know. I mean, it uses up a lot of water. So that's part of it. Well, I can think of one really important reason, and I'm thinking of a scene in the movie The Irishman, Scorsese masterpiece, of course, where Dick Nixon is out playing golf with Tony Provenzano, the mafia underboss up there in North Jersey, and they're hashing things out about God knows, whatever the fuck. So back in the days before, everybody having a computer in their pocket, that's a lot. I feel like where a lot of business got done, and I think still does.
Oh yeah, without question. And also, golf courses are great places to dispose of bodies. Right?
Isn't that where Ivana is?
That's right. She's buried in a golf course.
And she's not the only one buried there.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of people, she is. I'm saying this is probably other stuff with her.
Okay, speaking of burying bodies in New Jersey, can we talk about how the wildfire smoke gives appropriate cover to maybe bury some bodies in New Jersey? Literally.
That's interesting.
Or maybe move some buried bodies in New Jersey, like they're like Jimmy Hoffa's corpse, which is rumored to may or may not be under the Jersey Turnpike.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, your theory of the case is that basically the smoke fire creates cover.
It's a literal smoke of war. I mean,
it's a smoke screen, basically.
If you can't land at LaGuardia, you can do all kinds of crazy shit without being seen.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Well, okay, but I think we're kind of flailing around.
No, I mean, we're not totally
looking for a conspiracy.
We're not totally, because we know that the Chinese have talked about using satellite lasers that they have to cause fires.
If you look at a chronological loop of these fires, they all start at a strangely synchronized pattern. It's strange. I'll just leave it at that. It's strange.
It's very strange, and friends of mine have been called in on it, just to put that in perspective. So this is.
Did it originate from Canada type vibe or what?
Yeah, originated from Canada, obviously, but the question is, how were they started? They were started like kind of simultaneously, which is not normal,
Mm.
you know. And then we have on top of that, the Chinese and others have talked about using their satellite systems to cause fires.
Well,
So
there's
the balloon that was found has to do with this type of thing a few months ago.
Well, this is the question. You know, what's that about?
Mm.
All right,
Mm-hmm.
guys, come on, we're flailing. This is
No, I mean, no, it's not. It's not crazy. Like there was the question that also.
yeah,
I mean,
it
look,
is kind of crazy. I mean,
no,
just
I mean,
come.
think about
Charles. Look what I just threw up in the jumbotron. It's like the topic of a half satirical book by a guy named Rothschild, who points out that he's not related on the cover.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't want
So
to be. I don't want people to freak out about this, but like, literally, Wang Huning talks about causing forest fires to cause instability in societies. Okay, and he's the third most powerful person in China. He like writes about it in his book in the 1990s. So I don't know. Like maybe that's important. Maybe we should pay attention to that. You know, and you know we've been fucking with the Russians in all kinds of ways. Maybe they're fucking with us back, and maybe this is just how it's going to go. You know,
I'm supposed to be in Canada right now, which is kind of sad. Canada has the best candy bars. Like I buy like $100 worth of candy bars up there every year and bring them home. Just amazing. Just a side note.
yeah, I like Canada a lot. So I've been
So
to every Canadian province, by the way. It's my
so
favorite country outside the U.S.
so do you think that this, like, what is it, LIV or whatever, this tour that the evil Saudis created, and they just merged with the PGA, so the
Well,
PGA is going to be like a Saudi league?
it's fake. Obviously, they're not going to be
it's
able to do the deal.
right. It's going to be broken up, disallowed under antitrust, right?
Yeah, what they're doing is though, it's about moving money. Like the reason mobsters love to do mergers is they can rip up books, right? They can consolidate things when they do a merger, and then they can just change the books around, right? It gives them an opportunity. So, like, let's say you invest some drug money in a deal, and then that company gets acquired, and that company's made legit. It's a way of laundering the money.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's going on here is the Saudis have Trump in their back pocket. They've given Trump all this money over the years. And now they were in this lawsuit with the PGA Tour. And now they basically worked out a deal where they're going to bribe the PGA, right? So the question is how much of the PGA Tour, how many of those golfers are like connected with the US deep state or with the CIA? And is this a way in which the Saudis are paying the CIA? Right? That would be a way of thinking about it. And Trump was convinced the deal was always going to go through. So, you know, is it going to go through, or is it a way in which a whole bunch of money moves hands and then that deal is broken up and stopped from happening? You know, that's the question. And my guess is that there's all this money going to Trump right now because the Saudis want Trump to shut the fuck up if he gets indicted by Jack Smith.
Interesting.
I mean, that's clearly to me. And then, of course, the Israelis, who resent the fact that they've been cut out of the Saudi money funnel because their country's all fucked up. They are, of course, leaking stuff about how Trump's going to be indicted and harmed in this way and that. That's what the Maggie Haberman story is about. That's what the Jack Tapper stuff's about. So all of this stuff about how Trump is done and how he's going to go to jail or whatever, all of that's coming from the Israeli assets within the media. So that means that they know there's some bad stuff about to go down, and so they're trying to get ahead of it by framing it the way that they can.
How
My
could it
guess.
be if you're Tiger Woods?
What's that?
said, how pissed would you be if you were Tiger Woods, who, because if you remember, he did like this principled stand about, the whole live golf thing. And yeah, then they just sell out, basically, the PGA does. Like, he lost a lot of money doing that. And boom, they do this.
Yeah, I think it's just slightly more complicated than that. I mean, it seems to me it's just about moving money. And the best way to move money is in these types of deals, right? The question, of course, is how much money are we talking here, and who's going to be the ultimate beneficiary? Is it going to be all the weird Jewish guys who have connections with the Israelis who are going to benefit from this deal going through, or will it be the former president, or will it be some combination thereof? I don't know. I haven't seen the terms, obviously. They have been kind of mum on some of this stuff.
It doesn't
But
have
yeah, I mean, look, as our friend Machine Maverick points out, the head of the Saudi, fund was ordered to testify in the PGA Live golf suit. Okay, like that's obviously never going to be allowed to happen, right? They sort of can't allow that to happen.
I've noticed
But do
the
you
publicism.
think that this whole Trump indictment thing is going to be this juicy? Like
Yes.
it's going to involve.
Well, it's going to involve a lot of different players. I don't know.
I think it's going to be a broad conspiracy. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's clearly a broad conspiracy because of who the lawyers that they're bringing in on it. I mean, they're bringing in all the national security lawyers. That is not like something you do for some basic bitch mishandling of classifieds.
Right. They had the counterintelligence division down in the Southern District of Florida, I think, yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah. So like you just look at who's going where, and it's like it's not good. And then you look at the decision of Christie to announce this past week, and you look at all the enemy or the actions of the government against Coinbase and Binance. And it looks like
not to mention a suspicious aircraft downing in the mountains of northern Virginia on Sunday that we haven't heard anything more about since Monday morning.
Which, by the way, was involved by a major Trump donor.
Right. And yeah, crazy. And flew all the way up to Long Island and apparently lined up parallel with the runway at 38,000 feet or whatever, and then just flew straight back, as one does.
What was that about? I mean, that was a very curious situation.
Well, I don't know, but there was that guy from Long Island who got indicted for January 6th today, who owns all those funeral homes which sit on unincorporated land. I mean, I don't know if there's a connection, but other than shit's happening.
Yeah. I mean, it's really kind of a crazy time right now. And an exciting time, for that matter. I think we will look at the 2024 election cycle as one of the craziest we'll ever live through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's not really about 24. It's about the mob intersections with the U.S. body politic and who gets to be in charge of that relationship. So Chris Christie visits a family member of his by marriage who's in the mob in 1991. He visits him, and that's like the beginnings of his political career. So there's all these questions about when you're a federal prosecutor, you make decisions about who to prosecute, but you also make decisions about who not to prosecute. And that, I think, is a very important way of understanding Chris Christie. And he took out Corzine and the MF Global scandal, and then the huge whole pension fund hole in New Jersey. So there's a lot going on there. A 41-year relationship between Chris Christie and Joe Biden. They're both kind of from the Delaware mob. They both went to the University of Delaware. So, yeah, there's interesting stuff there. My sense, for what it's worth, Richard, is that, we are in a major global conflict with the Chinese, the Likud Israelis, and the Russians. And as we become more likely to win, they will get increasingly desperate and do increasingly irregular things, like burn our forests. That's my
Which
sense.
certainly doesn't exacerbate the long-term health effects of all the people living and commuting to Manhattan right now who have had COVID and may be suffering from post-COVID, symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So it's worth thinking about too.
And of course, it affects people in the economic capital and the national capital, right? Very important detail there too.
Yep.
Another thing
Yeah.
that's that I've found in my years of putting pieces together is a lot of the wealthy people in my area that have the nonprofits that run a lot of these spiritual things have so many pieces of properties on unincorporated properties. But not only just that, there are parts of Indian tribal once owned properties, and they usually have like cemeteries on them. So that gives them another excuse with the church. That's a lot of the hunting camps have churches on them, so they have those as tax write-offs, but they can also have those as grave sites. So there's a lot of these connections, whether people really understand this or want to understand it. It is true. You can start looking it up, and Alabama is covered in it. I have a family members. We have a hunting camp, and they have churches on them. And I started questioning a lot of the churches. Every hunting camp has a church on it that comes back from the Civil War time. I mean, these are old, beautiful, dilapidated with some of the most incredible looking wood you've ever seen that I've gone through to try to take some and take it home, and you can get shot and killed for it because they don't want you touching the property, even if it's left to be not touched with. It's been burned or just left to be rotten when it's the most beautiful tongue and groove you've ever seen. But anyway, I'm just saying that's where they hide everything. I don't care what anybody says. I know it. Uh, I sit and watch it and pay attention to it. If you look at all the churches that connect back to bigger parts of the cities that are that are out in the rural areas that have no reason to be connected whatsoever, but they have the same name. Like I have a church, the Fairhope Baptist Church, and 5 hour drive from here, there's a Fairhope Baptist Church in a town that's not called Fairhope. So explain to me why my church has another church in another town called Fairhope Baptist Church that has nothing to do with the name of the town, but it is owned by the Fairhope Baptist Church. So if you start looking, and you literally start looking just at the simple stuff of municipalities and go look at plats and go look at how the land is done, you'll learn a lot.
Yeah, and who owns what and
Oh,
how.
100%, and how it got put in someone else's name. And then go look at how it was, once black people owned it, that was taken away, or the Indians that owned it, that was taken away. And then how they put a nonprofit on there, and then it's an unincorporated territory, so there's no one ruling it. There's so much, and that's where they might put, where adoptions center, like a kind of like the agape. There's other ones called those. There's more than just types of agapes, but those type of places that they will build a place to put children, right? A ranch for all girls or all boys, or go look at where they put some of these Catholic churches and stuff, or any of it. It's all there. We just don't want to look at it, but it's there. It's in our faces.
Oh, I hear you on the Alabama
Oh, it's
corruption,
everywhere.
Dana.
It's not just Alabama. It can't just be us. We're not that unique. We're not that special, nor are we that damn smart. So I'm going to tell you, it's not just us.
No, I think a lot of it has a lot to do with what a few years ago it occurred to me that lots of children of mobsters were getting involved in logistics and shipping. And it's well, of course, because that is a way to quote unquote go legit.
With the
It's a way
trucking
to be
and
trucking is another
warehouses.
example too. Warehouses,
Yep,
trucking.
had the whole thing mapped.
And then you look at Canada, right? And it's the truckers that are rebelling, quote unquote.
And it's empty
Right?
land, all territory, all the frontier.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And there's always this question of what is actually being transported, who is being transported.
Alaska is pretty dark that way.
Yep. Alaska's very dark
Yes,
that way.
very dark that way. I know this, and it's creepy to me. It's beautiful but creepy.
Yeah. Alaska's probably my favorite state I've visited. It's also the
What
one
are
I'm
they
most
doing?
afraid of.
What is going on? You can't just insinuate
What are they
stuff.
really doing? It's people smuggling.
Yep, human
Okay.
smuggling.
For prostitution or
all
Anything.
for
Labor.
Forced labor, sex
Yep.
trafficking, you name it.
Yep.
yeah. So forced labor is the biggest thing because you can keep your profits juiced that way.
Yep.
So what you do is you take a bunch of slaves from Latin America or wherever, and you bring them up to work in your factory or in your clothing line
Your
or in your
farms.
farm. Farms are big with construction. And what you do is you pay them all cash if you pay them at all, and you control
You don't
them.
pay them at all. Not these people.
Some you do, some you don't. I've seen it both ways, where you pay them just enough to get by, and so that there's lots of games that are played.
Well,
But
they're hiring children in Alabama, and they're 12 and they're being molested and raped while they're working at the Hyundai dealership. Anybody can Google that and look at how many they found doing this, and we still don't do shit about it.
Yeah, it's very common in a lot of these areas. It's very common in Arkansas, in Texas. We've had it over the years. So yeah, and people
Texas is really dark. Oof.
Yeah. And what you learn a lot of the times is actually it's the churches, it's the same groups that pretend to be anti-human trafficking that are actually human trafficking operations.
It's the churches. Thank you. I'm glad somebody will say it.
No, it's very obvious. And then
No, it's not. Not to
you
you, but to me, but
these,
not to people. No,
you
it's
go
not.
to these churches and they never pass around a collection plate. And you're like, how do they pay for all this? And then you learn how they pay for it all.
Well, they have, like, for example, I mean, I hear my clients all the time writing a check for $1,000 for something that they have to do before the end of the year. I mean, they have so many. The Catholic Church has tons of them. The Episcopal Church. I've watched every church do it, and I don't understand how. I mean, we talk about how can we fix some of this. Well, maybe we need to start. Uh, Maybe we don't have to say tax the churches, but we can at least audit them to see if they're actually doing what they're fucking supposed to be doing. Because if they're not, then maybe they don't get tax free.
Yeah, that would cause a straight up revolution.
I mean, if I don't have tax free, I guarantee you, and you're never going to watch me, I'm going to slip and buy myself something every fucking once in a while. How about you? Who cares?
Oh, it's no doubt. It's no doubt happening. Because who's gonna audit a church?
I will if I was an accountant. Please hire me. I think that we have to do that.
I agree with you, but like as a practical matter, who's going to actually do that? Like the IRS doesn't fuck around with that.
The IRS needs to. We need to start passing laws. Well, they should, because that is where
Well,
all the,
I mean,
the
obviously,
corruption
Joe
is.
Biden hiring all those new IRS agents is a part of this.
Right. Totally.
But yeah.
But I mean, they can still be tax free, but just make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they're not. It's
as
obvious
one of my
Joel
friends,
Osteen is not doing the right thing.
Well, you saw Joel Osteen was selling one of his properties recently.
He's a piece of shit, and so is Graham and everyone else of them. We shouldn't have one starving child in the United States of a fucking America. So I'm over it.
Yeah, I'm with you. But so what's interesting to me is when you have unincorporated territory, it's the sheriffs and not the local police.
Oh, I know. My father was one, and he was killed because of it. So I know.
Yeah, the sheriff stuff is interesting because the sheriffs are kind of the biggest gang in America.
They are. And it started around, I mean, it's gone a long, long time, because we have history in Alabama with it going back to where we killed the Alabama Attorney General. We did that. And we did
in California, one of the things I learned rather quickly is the sheriffs are involved with all the criminal activity. Like they are a part of it. They are a kind of cover for it in a lot of ways.
They are gangs.
Yeah. And what you see is they actually hire other gang members. It's like really weird. And
Well,
eventually the feds come in, but the feds don't clean it all up. They just get the tops of it.
well, what they're doing right now is pretty fascinating because they noticed that they all have tattoos and they're now being able to brand them, and they know that this is now a cross across the country problem. I think some serious cleaning up might possibly start taking some effect. They're making them strip naked to see if they have a tattoo of any of these tattoos on their bodies now across the entire country. You didn't see that article?
Yeah, I saw that. It's long overdue.
Way long overdue. And I've been taking pictures of every police officer with every tattoo for quite some time. I've sent you a couple of pictures. And
Yeah, it's a
it's
real thing. It is
it's
a
a
real thing.
real thing, I know. But
But
see,
people are
people
not.
need to pay attention.
People
Pay
aren't ready.
attention.
People are not ready. People are not ready for the conversation about how many of our law enforcement agencies in this country, like,
Are
are
all bought and
bought
compromised.
and paid for by foreign governments.
Yep,
Many of which
100%.
move drugs. Many of which move human beings into our country.
And they do not do the Amber Alert. They help the Amber Alert to
They
move us
protect and
out.
serve in a
Yep,
way.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I think it's really. I would say that was, to me, that's been the most surprising thing in my life, is realizing just how bad the police are in a lot of these counties. You know,
I've been waiting for everybody to figure it out.
well, putting people on payroll. I mean, one of the things you see is that the mega rich in a lot of these communities, they
Oh
will
no,
put the police on payroll.
100%. And they have them surveillancing. They have their own surveillance companies. They've had them for quite some time. They hire them to work them. I've seen
Yeah,
it all.
yeah, I've seen it too. It's real.
100% real.
Some of these people, like these QAnon people, and anybody who says they value law and order,
Well, the QAnon stuff. Hold up, this is
children.
important. The QAnon stuff is to make a lot of conversations about the child trafficking and, women trafficking. A lot of it is designed to make it seem crazy and fringe.
Right.
So what you'll see a lot of the times is you'll see them talk about, like, spirit cooking or whatever. Like, the conservatives will be led down a path of insanity rather
Mm-hmm.
than focus on, like, the real organized crime networks.
Well, because we haven't really had a serious conversation because a lot of the nonprofits that help human trafficking and sex trafficking are part of the problem.
Yes.
So until we clean that up, we can't really fix the problem.
Yeah.
Well, a lot
So
of people, if they actually believe in the things they say, then they should support this. It's kind of like Dana, you said auditing the churches. Like if you are
No, but a lot of people donate to these organizations so that those mobs and networks won't fuck with them.
that's right. But
So,
you can
like,
still audit it.
I myself have found myself, like, being shaken down for donations to various things over the years, and there's a way in which they do it, and they will fuck with your businesses if you don't contribute to them.
100%.
but
That's
if
that,
you're
that's what they've done. They've manhandled everybody, so they're afraid to speak, and they don't because their jobs and their livelihoods depend on it. So they turn the other cheek, and that's what happens.
if you're the average churchgoer, though, like if you're just the basic church going, save the children type person, like you should, if your beliefs are sincere and you actually want, like, your church to be of God and doing the right thing, you should welcome audits. I mean, in my opinion, like you would want to make sure that your house of worship is on the up and up. And
Yeah, I mean, some of these churches eventually figure it out, but it's rare where it's figured out.
Well, it's only limited to a certain amount.
Yeah.
It's not, you don't get the whole church. You can do this part. You can do
Yeah.
the daycare after school part. You can do that. You're not going to get the whole church. No.
Yeah.
They're hiding this shit in the plumbing, remember? In the walls.
Yeah. No, that's right. Yeah, you never get a full church as a laundry.
No, you won't.
They break up parts of the business as ways of doing it.
There's so many LLCs.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
flush the toilet. You have a toilet flusher. Oh, that's an LLC. Everything has its own LLC. A bedroom, a bathroom, or whatever.
Yeah. No, that's the dark side of it. But yeah, so here's what I think is going to happen.
I think that basically Trump will go down. The question is for what and how. And I think what our deep state is looking for is an excuse to get rid of him, to move him off the stage. Now, I think what they'll do is they'll neutralize him, but they won't kill him and they won't jail him. They'll just neutralize him. Because remember, if he's indicted, they can seize a lot of his accounts. Right. They can go through a lot of his financials. And they can see who's paying him and how much and how.
He's also
Didn't
not
we
going to
just
be
do
able to leave
that?
the country anytime soon.
That's
Oh,
right.
that's good. Didn't we just go through his financials though, or no?
No, we went through the financials of the Trump organization, but there are
Oh,
many
okay.
organizations around him. So the thinking was that if we seize the Trump organization, that would be sufficient, but he has other companies. So if you indict him, well, then all of his companies become lookable. That's what I think is going to go down, Richard, for what it's worth.
I know it's hard to believe, Richard, but it's true. I'm sorry, but it is.
You don't have to apologize. No, I think it's going to happen. I mean, I don't think Trump will ever be in jail.
Oh, well, I'm not talking about
But
the Trump part. I'm talking about all the dark stuff. The Trump part, I'm still. I won't believe it till he's handcuffed and put in prison. I just
Yeah,
won't.
but I don't think he'll ever go to prison. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I
go
don't
ahead,
either.
Richard.
I
Go
don't
ahead,
either.
Richard.
yeah, I mean, I think we need to have a centralized government. We need to have a federale style enforcement. All of this conservative fascination with like local, it's just so backward. And yeah, that's like, who's the Alabama Sessions, like the Anglo-Saxon tradition of local sheriffs or whatever, like, I don't know, the Anglo-Saxon tradition of obese morons. Yes, what a grand tradition. We should just centralize all of this. This American fascination with like states' rights and autonomy and freedom or something, I've always just instinctively hated it with a passion. We should have just centralized authoritarian government. I don't know. We could actually
Well, I mean, the
have
problem,
like
of course, is in
central
America,
planning.
and the problem is in America be run by the Israelis.
Well, yeah, but like you guys have just described to me, and I'll go along with
I
more than
agree with you, by the way.
50% of what you said.
I agree
You
with you.
just described to me this horrible situation of like all these bumblefuck morons on the payroll. Yeah, let's just end this shit. Like, yes, if you centralize it, there's always the
No, I'm with you.
possibility
I'm
that,
with you 100%. I think all
you
of
know,
their financials should be audited routinely. I think all of it should be tracked. Absolutely.
yeah. But it's just like this is one country, one empire. I mean, there just needs to be one central force doing this, and I do think it would be better that way, and that's just a
Yeah,
natural.
my theory just largely is that the U.S. I used to believe that the U.S. federal government was becoming weaker over my lifetime, but I think what was really happening is its power was being distracted. It was
Mhm.
being like sent abroad to Afghanistan or Iraq
Yep.
or whatever. It
Yep.
was not. It didn't have its eye on the ball. And I
Yep.
think increasingly its power is that it's being focused now.
That was the point, right?
Yeah, that was the point.
To distract us away from what we needed to do to keep us.
And to
But
tell
they've been doing
ourselves
it for a
and
long
to tell
time.
us like silly little lies about how the world works. Like the Chinese are now realizing like the U.S. has come to play.
We need another Joe Biden. We need somebody who cares about this country, like literally cares about it like we do in this room. This can be president.
Well, maybe we'll get another Joe Biden. Maybe we'll get another 4 years from him.
Well, the only person I see that's close to him right now, just to be honest with you, with the integrity of not being perfect but perfect, is Gavin Newsom. I'm just thoroughly impressed with him more and more every day.
Yeah, I thought he's risen to the moment with the whole
Beautiful.
the whole situation with DeSantis.
I want a good-looking president. I have no
There-
problem with that. I want somebody who dresses and knows how to talk,
Hey, I've got nothing
isn't
against.
perfect,
Dana,
I've
isn't
got
perfect.
I'm not sure whether I'm in love with Polly or Dana. I'm torn.
take them both.
Well,
You can
both
have me,
both
Richard.
are okay. Both seem okay with infidelity, so it might work.
Well, it'd have to be in my dreams because I do love my husband. But
Oh,
we
I'm
can all
sorry.
have
Yeah,
dreams now.
don't
My husband will
tell
let me
your
have a
husband I'm
dream.
obviously joking. I'm not.
I know you are. Well, we all can dream.
But I will tell you that it does seem to me like Gavin Newsom has come to play. You know, like
He needs
He
to
Newsom.
come
should
more
just
and more and
fucking.
more.
He should just indict DeSantis. Like these immigration stunts. I even think this, like the Martha's Vineyard one, it was stupid and horrible, but it kind of worked in the sense that it was a conversation. I think there is a collective just like eye roll about
Well,
this
they're
shit at this
human
point.
trafficking the people.
They're obviously human trafficking people. There's literally no other like term to describe what they are doing, and but beyond that, it's just dumb. It's a stunt, and so it's just like just stop this.
But did you see what
DeSantis is
Gavin
so
said?
desperate.
He said,
Did
I
you see what
got
he?
on the ground and I saw how he did it. I didn't go third party. I went on the ground. He
I
said
was
he has
great.
them.
That
I
video,
loved it.
that video of him the other day was fucking phenomenal.
He became my president that day after Joe Biden.
Yeah, he's clearly going to be the guy.
He has to be.
I think it'll probably be Christie.
I actually tend to believe. I tend to agree with you. Everyone gets. There's. I've always noticed this, like whether it's like politics or a sporting event or whatever, everyone has this narrative, and then like the one thing they don't predict actually happens, and it seems to always happen like that. And so everyone's psyched up for this DeSantis Trump thing.
Yeah, it won't
Trump
happen.
seems to be going down. DeSantis is just done. I'm sorry. He is done. There is no possible way.
Did you read that Jacobin piece about how he's like stealing money from the pensions?
Yeah. I
It's
have
like
not read it, but I've heard someone talk about it. Yeah.
So bad.
Yeah.
You know, he's
But
like literally
beyond all
taking the
that.
money away from the pensions, giving it to his friends who then donate to him while they lose the money in the investments.
That's happening in so many states. I hate to tell y'all.
Yeah, people get indicted all the time for it.
Yeah. Well, they're not enough because Alabama's doing it in a really dark way too.
Yeah.
It's been getting away with it for a long time.
God, Alabama just sounds horrible.
All states are. You need to pay to those pension funds.
You know who
crazy.
fixed a lot of it, by the way, in New Jersey? Who fixed all the pension shit? Chris Christie.
I loved him last night. I enjoyed watching every ounce of it. I laughed. I thought it was funny.
Many ounces, yeah.
Yeah, so good.
What did you think of it? I mean, you watched it. I watched it. What did you think on his announcement?
I loved it. I have to say thank you to my friend John in this room who always makes me come to my senses and says, you got to open your mind, keep growing, and brought me to you, Charles, and helped me to, keep my mind open. You've watched me argue you into a room into 4:00 in the morning and waking my husband up and everybody else screaming over Obama. But you've gotten me to understand and see things in a whole healthier way. And I look at Chris Christie as someone, with a little bit of y'all's background that you share with us. It does go a long way to get my mind to see that he's doing it for our country. And so that gives me a lot of comfort.
He's a flawed guy, but he's
We
definitely
all
an
are.
interesting guy.
But flawed is what I don't want perfect. I like somebody who's a little
That's the whole point of America, is a bunch of flawed people trying to figure it out as we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
no, I think he's.
Please.
No, I mean, look,
I hate this American bullshit. Come on.
No, but I think it's true, Richard.
We need some patriotic parts in there.
There's a lot of people that are deeply flawed in our country, and
yeah, everyone's flawed. This is not. This is some like American, like weird tale we tell about ourselves or something.
No,
Like,
but we're really fucked up relative to other countries. Like we are
well,
definitely
yes,
we're
but
fatter, we're more degenerate.
oh no,
Like
no, I get all that.
yeah,
Yes,
I mean we
of
do
course.
like our vices are on a whole order of magnitude more than other countries.
Yep.
Like we steal more, we kill each other more often. We do like we're really fucking cruel to each other as Americans.
We lie to each other constantly. Like we're
Yeah.
not healthy in
Almost
our
like it's a grand
relationship.
social experiment set up without our knowledge or consent.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
I think a lot of other countries you just can't steal as much. Like you just can't get into as much trouble as you can in the US. You know, they have like a lot more restrictions on things than we do. You know?
Because Walmart needs those tax write-offs. They don't give a shit if you steal. They want to pick and choose who they're going to arrest. They see everything. They have all the best surveillance. They pick and choose, and they
Oh,
have
that's so
sex trafficking
true.
going in there with. Have you ever been, like, I don't go to Walmart, but I have gone with a few times when you, for certain stupid things that you just got to go because you don't want to go farther to go to Home Depot or something and pick something up or order it because you have to go get it. So, or you need it right then. So, when I've been and the men that taken these young kids to go buy clothes, and I'm like, why are you there? Why are you near the dressing room? It is so disturbing on so many levels. I don't even understand it. It's
Yeah,
gross.
there's a lot of bad stuff that happens in Walmart parking lots at night.
Yes.
Guys,
That too.
please stop. Can we talk about something else? I mean, Jesus Christ.
You must live in lovely one. I mean, I
He
live in a
does.
nice
He
town, but
he
come
lives in
on.
Whitefish.
Yeah,
Well,
I live in
yeah, and I just
a small
avoid all this
whitefish, but
shit because I hate Americans. I mean, I'm sorry, but like,
Well, it's true. I
like
mean,
anyone with any ounce of taste like hates these people. I mean, they're just fucking moronic, and
yep,
you just avoid them.
yeah.
So like, I don't want to hear. I'm not surprised that they're doing shit in Walmart dressing rooms, but like, my
I
life has
feel
been
for those
about like
kids. I'm
avoiding.
sorry. I want to save them.
well, maybe they can't be saved. That's the darker
The
thought.
children can.
Maybe they can't.
But I
I don't
mean,
know.
don't you think I guess what I'm getting at is this whole like American. I remember even learning about this in lower school where it was like, oh, the British were fighting in regiments and we were hiding behind trees taking pot shots with rifles. And I was like, you're proud of this? First off, all of that is incorrect history. They actually used Prussian military style in fighting the Revolutionary War. But it's just this weird myth that we have about ourselves. And all it is some kind of excuse for being like tasteless and crass. It's like, well, it's a social experiment. We're just figuring out. It's like you're just
right.
saying that because you're fucking gross.
Oh, we're a
You
gross
know?
country. I mean,
Yeah, but like, there's no fucking excuse for the fact that this country is not more beautiful, that we don't have better institutions and infrastructure, etc. There's just no excuse. We were given a landmass that's like more beautiful than
The
Europe, or at
people
least
have never
equal.
owned it. That's the problem. A tiny,
Oh,
tiny, tiny,
shut
tiny
up.
sliver have owned it and controlled it the whole time. We've
well,
deluded ourselves into thinking that we have
do you
control
honestly
over our
think
country,
if
but
we
we don't.
do you honestly think if we divide, like Montana, I think is like majority state owned or federal land or whatever. Do you honestly believe that if we gave over federal land to Americans, that it would be more beautiful? Do you honestly believe that?
No,
Have you
I do
seen
not
That's not
believe
the
that.
argument I'm trying to make.
No,
The
he's
argument I'm
making
What
trying to make
argument
is
are
that
you making?
he's making an opposite
America
argument.
hasn't ever been owned largely by middle class Americans,
Middle class Americans are shit.
because they were targeted relentlessly over the last 40 years by foreign powers.
This is excuse after excuse for the fact that this country is filled with a bunch of fucking bumpkins.
Richard, the point I'm trying to make is they can be both
Do not
victims
blame
and villains at the
Israel
same
for
time.
the fact that Americans, like, give me a break.
I think Richard, I think the point he's making, and I think there's some
You
truth.
can't blame people for getting fat when they don't know that people are sneaking sugar into their diet without their knowledge or consent, Richard. That's bullshit.
Excuse after fucking
No,
excuse.
I mean, Richard,
Why am I not fat? I'm just curious.
Well, I mean,
because everybody's gut microbiome is different. Your genome is different, and you're smart enough. You're white, and you were born in a world with and had resources to know what proper nutrition is. If I work a 9 to 5 minimum wage job and I'm living on McDonald's and they sneak extra sugar into my diet, A, I'm not going to know, and B, I'm not going to care, and C, I'm not going to be able to do anything about it. But I'm going to get a lot
yeah, I mean, look,
sicker.
there's a lot of people who've made a lot of money basically experimenting on middle class and lower class people.
Look, I sorry to be a little harsh.
So
here,
don't blame people for being, lazy ass.
Look. We have a noblesse
takers.
We have a noblesse oblige question here, right? We have a bunch of Americans.
These people better, but I'm not going to make them better by giving them freedom. I would make them better with the lash.
Maybe.
Some people, yes. But a lot of people have never tasted the freedom that we say we promised them. They're actually living in indentured servitude right now and they don't know it.
They should be in servitude. I don't give a flying fuck about
it's
freedom.
Not their.
It's such a fucking gay.
Richard, if you are trying to grow a plant and you don't water it, do you blame the plant for not growing?
That has nothing
to
do
fuck?
With freedom. You have this libertarian bias.
No, he doesn't have a libertarian bias.
Only they were
I'm actually pretty left moderate, believe it or not.
Yeah. No, that's not his argument.
Leftists believe in human autonomy and freedom. You have to tell people you have to decide what the best thing is and force people to comply.
Richard, he agrees with that. That's his argument.
No, it's not. It's his argument is that middle class people should have more choice or something.
No,
they should have less
that's not
choice.
the argument.
Middle class people should be told the extent to which they're victimized and that the problems that they find themselves with in their life aren't entirely of their own choice or design or fault.
Yeah, but John,
and that
John,
people have been preying on them.
John, you would agree that we should just stop them from being preyed upon first.
Right.
No.
Right. Stop the predatory lending. Stop the usurious interest rates on credit cards. Stop the student loan bullshit. Stop the healthcare fraud. Stop the racketeering in every up and down the economy. And it's water the plant before you blame the plant for not bearing fruit.
It's all based on their own quest for some kind of the American dream, which is
the number of
filling your gullet with the
number of people who just get ripped off all day every day.
Dude, I'm a privileged white guy, and I can tell you all the ways in which I get ripped off because I'm not willing to go along to get along.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
It sickens me.
All of this, I don't even disagree with most, I would even grant you, of your criticisms of the current system. We're actually aligned in that. This is getting a little testy, so I want to make sure that we have some common ground. I think you and I just have a fundamentally different notion of human nature.
Maybe.
I mean, I do not think human beings are good. And you do.
I think you have to give human beings an opportunity to be good before you just assume that they're all bad.
That we've done that test.
No, we haven't. When you feed people garbage for the first 6 years of your life, they're going to be under neurologically developed and they're going to develop all kinds of chronic diseases later in life. That, by the way, the healthcare system is going to profiteer off of.
They'd be really brilliant if it weren't for sugar or something. Give me a fucking break.
No,
Richard, it's the synergistic effect of all of these things. I can't sum all of this up at 1 o'clock in the morning Central Time. It's the synergistic effect of all of these things that weigh down and degrade people from ever being able to blossom into the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, this is the German.
Listen to this crap.
Richard, you have the German view of this.
The best versions. Should be a preschool teacher.
I'm a proud secular fucking humanist. Take it to my fucking grave.
Yeah, you're wrong though. Is the fun?
Okay, that's your opinion.
I agree with you on your
I hope I can save up enough money as someday to come skiing in Whitefish, but I'm not afforded that luxury.
Gentlemen, I think you're both right here. I understand where you're both coming from. For several years, I'm very much of that the people are the problem.
Yes.
But I think a lot of that does come from people are bitter. People are extremely bitter. That is one thing that has become so obvious
Joe
Left.
Biden said it in his State of the Union address. We're sick of being played for suckers.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
a lot
there are
of
some people who are wittingly playing other people for suckers and profiteering off of it and laughing all the way to the bank. And there are some people who are unwittingly working for those profiteer centers and would be probably pressed into service if they could be shown the light. And then, about 70% of the country is literally prey
I will say
for the
that
ruling class.
I will say that there is a lot of truth to what you're saying, John, where like the Israeli predatory behavior, the Chinese predatory behavior is a big part of living in America these
There's
days.
so much unnecessary
But-
middle management in everything. It's
but-
grift. It's
But I will say this, that there is something to be said for like just a general decline in character in our population as well.
Okay, and that is fair. Everything that y'all are saying.
Well,
but I'm gonna say
this came up in
much.
regards to Gary Hart earlier. This was in a backdrop of like Morton Downey Jr. and the rise of like dirty talk show daytime television. So let's not kid ourselves that this wasn't part of a broader effort to erode our discourse and make us dirtier, filthier, in the gutter people.
There are a lot of stupid people that I agree, Richard, that just they're never going to be different. But someone like myself and like John that would like that opportunity, but we've had these things that kind of got in our way that kind of probably kept us from being even better than what we are right now.
Mhm.
That's why we're pissed. But not everybody. I think that I agree. There's a little bit that I agree with you on, but then I'm also with John on the aspect is that some of us want that opportunity that not everybody's
I
smart
want
enough to know that
everybody
they
I
had it
meet to be able to
wrong.
get the same private school education I got. I want to share it with people
Same with my
because it changed my fucking life. And if I didn't have it, there's a
right.
decent chance I might be living in a trailer somewhere today.
Yep. And my son was able to have it, and I want other people's children to be able to have it if that's what they want. I totally agree with that.
I do right that as far as we are in a place where we literally have information, all sorts of information available at our fingertips, and people, not everyone obviously, but a large part of our population thinks that they
There are a lot.
look
There are
at
a lot
the
of people
truth.
though, Polly, that would choose slavery if they had a choice.
Oh, absolutely. But some
I'm
of these
not disputing that or
those
denying
people.
that,
I'm
but
just
I
gonna
think
be
you need to
honest.
offer people a legit chance.
I don't know those people that want to be a slave. I just don't. Sorry.
I think
given
do.
the opportunity to read Shakespeare, and on the one hand, and the opportunity to watch hardcore scatological pornography, which do you think 90% of the population
It's a false
will
choice
choose?
because you need a prerequisite level of education to even consider
God.
Shakespeare on the same plane.
Yeah,
That's true. That's true.
I think
Richard.
I
Come
think the
on.
point here is
You're smart.
No, in
the problem
1600,
in America.
Shakespeare was like
No.
movie
Richard, you were
maker
born
of his
with a
day.
very high IQ.
Look, you will always have.
Not everybody's born with
No,
that
hold on. You will always have the poor white trash among us. You will always have very weak people from all over the world who want to settle here. The problem I find isn't so much this white trash. It's the elites who've absconded from their responsibilities to fix a lot of our social problems.
100% agreement.
Because it's so much more convenient to just profiteer off the white trash's suffering.
But we have a terrible elite. I mean, this is the problem.
The
we
big
need to
problem.
breed a new one. But you need to understand, not everyone's going to be elite. Like when there's a new elite, they're going to have obligations to the rest of humanity that they're going to have to lead them in a way, induct them into a higher state of being. But that's what it's going to be about. It's not going to be about like liberating everyone or all of this shit. Like, it might be even harsher. You might need to, I am kind of one of the big Plato haters of the world out there, but like Plato was right about very important things, extremely important things. You have to lie to these people. There is no possible way you can tell them the truth. They are going to have to live in a new delusion that's better than the American dream that they've been living in for a while. But to think that like you can liberate them and we can all flourish or whatever is just total.
So let's give them a better delusion where we're actually not fighting over scarce resources, but actually have things like nuclear fusion and, you know, an electric grid and electric cars and things like that.
Yeah, I can get on board with all. I mean, you know, we might have technical disagreements, but I'm on board with all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think really what it comes down to is forcing our elite to be elite and be publicly spirited.
Some of these elite need to lose their money though.
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
that's part
they
of
need
it.
to lose more than that. I mean, yeah, they're just horrible.
Look,
Just
there's a false
horrible.
elite in this country,
Yeah.
some of which has been appointed over us. I mean, Elon
But
Musk.
how do we get there? I mean, I've often thought that, like, I have a certain kind of devilish delight in the thought of the guillotine. You know, like I would, although I wouldn't join in because I have my own kind of commitments and I don't think they would want me to join in, but if I wanted to. But, you know, I kind of look forward to the coming backlash and chaos when, you know, all those QAnon fantasies actually take place. Like there's just mass guillotining and craziness and chaos, because I do think that
You have
there
a vision of
needs
a
to be a
future
kind
that's
of,
possible.
but there needs to be a kind of slate cleaning so that something new can be written. And it might come through some like crazy left-wing insanity. It might come through
No, I think it
some
will come
right-wing
from just.
backlash.
I think it will come from just taking away a lot of their money.
But if you
Can't
don't
happen
change the
soon enough.
system, there's just going to be a new like snake coming out of the head of Medusa. I mean, like it,
True.
you know, you can get rid of Jeffrey Sachs. There's like Jeffrey Sachs is just like the lucky Jeffrey Sachs. He's got there's
David
like 1,000.
David
whatever.
Sachs.
Dave, I
Yeah.
like misnaming them. Jeff Sachs, you know, the guy from there's just going to be enough. Like he's just like he has like 1,000 doppelgangers who just didn't have like the luck that he had, who are waiting to rise in his place. You know, so you've got to fundamentally.
Oh, I don't know. I actually don't know that I
system.
believe that. I've come to believe that actually, if you just like when you destroy a terrorist network, where if you take out one terrorist, you actually like the whole network shifts and changes, and then it becomes much weaker. I think that's true of the oligarchs as well. So I actually think that we need to be much more aggressive in SEC and DOJ and IRS and social prosecution of these people.
100%.
Like I think David Sachs should not be able to go anywhere without people like upset with him and harassing him and his kids. So yeah, I have a different view on this. Same thing with Elon. They need to be shamed into being patriotically minded.
I don't understand how Elon got to be who he is in the first place. If everything he did was a lie, everything he did was off of a stupid. He didn't even graduate from
What did Joe
college and
Biden
had a
do? Joe
club.
Biden fixed the Obama problem his first week of his presidency. And he said, hey, if you want all these, you know, government subsidies for your electric cars have to be way cheaper. And Elon was like, fuck you, I'm voting Republican in the 2022 election. And then the Republicans barely won. And Joe Biden was like, I wasn't kidding. You have to reduce the price of your cars. And now what is Elon doing? Reducing the price of his cars.
Well, aren't they kind of doing that on their own because they're blowing up?
No, they're being forced. He's being forced to reduce the price of his cars by, if he wants to get mandates, he has to drive down the price of cars because the U.S. government wants affordable electric cars. Hence Aptera, by the way. But like that's what's going on. Joe Biden is way more aware of the problem of the oligarchs and our fake elite in this country than I think people really appreciate.
I think I agree with that 100%.
All right, I am going to head out. I'm going to get to bed on time. John, I love you, man. We had
likewise. I always love a late night toe to toe argument. So
it was
nothing personal, my friend.
Good to get into spirited, just totally.
I grew hairs on my chest
bit
for that
wacky discussion, but yeah, obviously I care about the ideas. It's nothing personal, of course.
People are the problem.
You
It's
should hug
very
it out in
sexy to
Minnesota or
watch
Whitefish.
smart men fight. Woo!
People are the problem. Yes, I
They
agree.
are.
All right, I'll talk to you guys
You got to
later.
get Richard. You got to go
Peace
get
out.
Polly's. You got to go get Polly's number.
There you go.
Don't let us down.
Well, we'll be talking, probably tomorrow night. Hit me up, Ollie, after the Doors is finalized. Yeah. All right. I'll talk to
Oh,
you
was
guys
there matchmaking going on in
later. Well, Dana, you're not available.
You know,
here?
Charles is a very good name for a firstborn. Just saying.
No. King Charles.
Interesting.
Multi-
I'm not a
multi-
huge
multi-purpose
fan of
Twitter Spaces.
Charlemagne.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of Charlemagne. I like people who I really admire.
I
To name
mean,
children
King Charles is a pretty impressive one now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, one of the first Charleses didn't have too much luck.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, he followed your guillotine approach, right? I mean,
Yeah.
lost his head, lost his
Yeah.
kingdom, and lost his head. So there's that. All right. Well, sleep well, Richard.
Talk to
See
you
you
later.
next time.
Bye.
Go
Bye.
BBH.
Yeah, I think. Well, I hope Richard comes out of his shell one of these days. It would be nice.
I was only being half sarcastic about wishing I could ever go skiing in Whitefish someday. I do actually have that on my bucket list. So
I've been to Whitefish. It's actually I haven't been skiing, but it's kind of disappointing in general.
really,
Yeah, Montana is one of those places that seems like it's fun, but then you get there and you just get like overcharged for everything, and the service isn't very good.
and it's 100 miles between everything.
Yeah, it's like 4 hours anywhere you want to go.
Isn't that where most of the deaths are in the United States?
Skiing?
No, Montana. Or is it Wyoming? Wyoming, maybe?
I think you're thinking Wyoming.
Yeah, I think it's Wyoming.
I was in Bozeman in 2016, and the cab driver was very, very loose-lipped about all the Hollywood money that was flowing into the town and all of the real estate development. So I just thought that was very interesting.
Yep, a lot.
I'm more a Wyoming person than a Montana person, but my photo is of me in Montana, so I like that.
Just wear that orange hunting suit if you're going to be anywhere near Dick Cheney.
Yeah. Well, my favorite state I think is still Alaska, but hasn't changed much. But yeah, I think what's that, Polly?
I was just going to say I road tripped by myself to Wyoming from Minnesota last summer, and yeah, it was peaceful. I took an extra day coming home just because I was mostly in Cheyenne, but I wanted to go up, more north and stuff. I was there campaigning for Liz Cheney, but she didn't win. But yeah, it's a beautiful state. It's a beautiful state. Lots of history too.
A lot of dead people.
Lots of dead people.
Missing dead people too.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who go missing in a lot of parts of our country that we just don't talk about, like Mississippi, Oklahoma,
Long Island
for sure.
Not Minnesota.
Yeah, the number of genetic stuff that got solved recently in some of these states is really interesting. Which states are keen on solving their backlog of dead people and which ones are not. That's always very interesting to me.
What about New Mexico?
I don't know New Mexico well.
All those ranches, there are hundreds of acres. I mean, just sitting there.
I don't know New Mexico well, unfortunately.
It seems creepy. Everything I look up there seems creepy.
It's
beautiful too. Don't get me wrong, but creepy.
If you're gonna disappear someone, I think it's best to do it somewhere that has bears
or alligators.
Yeah.
Oh, that's disturbing.
I live in Alabama. We have a lot of alligators. I'm just saying.
Was brutally attacked by an alligator in Alabama.
You were?
Yeah, we were actually going out to my ex's family's hunting grounds, and there was like a downed tree in the road. to like get out and deal with it, and I wasn't looking around enough, and I thought it was actually just like a piece of wood out of the corner of my eye, and I'd kind of backed up into it, and it moved and turned and nearly missed getting my leg, and then yeah, kind of
I had
crawled
one.
after me.
I had one. I was on a boat one time, and I went to go see what was wrong with the backside of the boat, and it tried to bite me as I was trying to pull the starter on the engine on the little on the little boat or whatever. And I quickly got the shotgun that I had and shot it right in the head. And I've never felt more satisfied about something in my life.
That doesn't always mean they die, though, just so you know.
Yeah, I don't know if it died or not, but I had a situation
Well,
this
I'm just
last
saying it
week.
can still come after you.
I
Just,
was in Texas and a fucking coral snake tried to get me when I was going
ugh.
for a walk. And I came back. I was so annoyed about it. I stewed about it, went back into the house and got a shovel and came up and cut it into pieces. And I felt really good about it afterwards.
You didn't shoot its head off?
I didn't have a gun with me. I had a gun, like, I had a gun on the far end of the property. So I just went back. I was looking for something I could do to like really fuck it up. So I was looking for like some kind of spear or something, and I found the shovel, and I was like, that'll do. And I went back.
Can we call that going Ukrainian on the snake?
I went back, and I was very upset because obviously it's the anniversary of my failed marriage. So I just like cut that snake up into little pieces and threw it into the woods, and I just like chopped it up. And my friend was like, "Yo, you know that snake is super poisonous?" And I was like, "Not anymore.
Very. And it'll come after you, too,
Not
dead.
anymore."
They can.
And
Do you not know about that? Please look it
God,
up.
it felt so good. I gotta say, just like, it was like I probably cut it up into like 12 pieces. It was good stuff.
But Charles, you know the head can still come back and bite you, right?
Well,
Even
I
if you
don't know
cut it
about that.
off.
I
Google
took
it,
it.
please, so you
I
know
took
this.
the head. I took the head after I cut it, and I just like it was like I was golfing or some shit. I just leaned back with the shovel and fired it out into the woods.
Okay, that's good. Don't touch it, though.
Yeah.
I'm
No, I didn't
picturing the
touch any
scene
of
in
that.
Anchorman where Jack Black drop kicks the dog off the Coronado Bridge.
Yeah, it's not quite like that, but it was. I got to tell you, I was having a really bad day, and this fucking snake, I saw it, and I was like, "Oh, you're fucking mine," and I was like, "I'm gonna come back for you," and I went right into the house and like got myself an iced tea and had some of the iced tea, got the shovel, looking for things to like stab it with, and came back and saw it like right on the driveway, and I was like, "Yes," and I just like it was fantastic.
Well, a snake can come back and bite you after you cut its head off up to 20 to 30 minutes after you kill it. So please know this, people. It has happened to several people I know. You do not want to, and baby venomous snakes sometimes are more venomous than their mothers. So
Yeah, I've
lots of
heard that.
things for
I've
people
heard
to
that about
know.
that. I've heard that.
One of my ducks went nuts on a snake several years ago. Like,
Oh, good.
the snake was already dead. I think it had, I don't know, something else had gotten it, but I noticed my duck was like violently swinging something around in its bill, and I'm like, what the hell is that? And he like was just, it was already dead, but he was murdering this snake, and I'm like, oh my god, holy shit. It was kind of interesting because yeah, he was like swinging it in his bill, like just going at ape shit.
How
I
many
gotta
ducks
tell
do you
you,
have?
I don't have any anymore. I had two at one point, and then my Melvin passed away this last fall. He
I'm
was
sorry.
uh,
I love animals.
me too. I'm very much preferred to people.
Same.
yeah, I've got to tell you, I don't fuck around with the outdoors all that often.
I love the outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
But when I go out there, I go out looking for things to kill, lest they kill me. So I don't know. So yeah, what's our sense? So did anyone? I noticed no one talked tonight about Mike Pence. I guess we have nothing to say, and neither did he.
Is he running?
He apparently announced tonight.
Oh, I missed that.
Well, let's see what the grand jury says after tomorrow, right?
Yeah, we'll see. Does the grand jury think tomorrow is?
No, I mean, if Trump's getting indicted tomorrow and there's a broad conspiracy around January 6th, well, who knows what Mike Pence has in store for him.
Okay, I've been out all day, so is he really going to be indicted tomorrow?
That's what it says. Yeah.
If Maggie Haberman's writing about it, then it must be real, and they're trying to get out in front of it.
Okay.
I mean, it is pretty crazy. I don't know. I feel like Trump will figure out a way out of this one. This is just
Is
kind of
this
what
to
he does.
distract from something Jared has done?
Could be. Yeah, Feds informed Trump he's likely to be indicted. Walls closing in. This is an ABC News.
But if you look at the sourcing, it's all really thin.
It is pretty thin on a lot of this stuff. You're right, John.
I feel like
I'm not going to
Jared's
believe it happens.
son Trump never had.
What's that?
I said I feel like Jared is the competent son that Trump never had.
I don't know. I think he just sold his daughter into the Jewish mob, and he's trying to make the best of it.
Yeah, probably.
But all of his kids are married to a Jewish person.
I know, which is very interesting.
And
I
I
remember
think that people don't talk enough about Ivanka. Ivana was Jewish.
Yeah, that's the rumor. I don't know that that's true, though.
Her father was Jewish, and on his mother's side was Jewish. And if you go and look up where they were from in Czech Republic at the time of the period of when it was Austria, whatever it was, that is where the Jewish people lived. It's where she's from. You can look
you could well be right. Did you see what I posted about Mark Meadows?
Mm-mm.
I had texted with Mark Meadows on June 28th, 2022.
Oh, I saw that. I saw it. I retweeted
And
it.
I just told him it's nice watching the end of your career in real time. And today he went state's evidence on the on Trump. Apparently he's agreed to plead guilty to some crimes.
Again, fairly thinly sourced, I think.
Yeah, I don't know actually. I totally believe that he would do that, though.
I do too, but I'll believe things when I see them in Pacer,
Yeah, fair enough.
Have y'all looked into his?
That's a good point, John. John and Eric have both convinced me of the importance of just not touching any of this shit until you look in Pacer or until you look.
A competent mainstream media, which I can actually reach back into my memory and recall from like the mid 90s, would remind its viewers that the policy of the Justice Department is to not comment on ongoing investigations. And so if you're hearing anything about an ongoing investigation, it ain't coming from the Justice Department. Ergo, it's coming from the target, subject, potential defendant.
Or foreign intelligence.
Correct.
Makes complete sense.
But, we have to do the mainstream media's,
Prosecutors intend to ask grand jurors to vote on the indictment on Thursday. And that vote could be delayed by as much as a week till the next meeting of the grand jury to allow for a complete presentation of evidence or to allow investigators to gather more evidence if necessary.
And to allow the Israelis a week of lead time to collect signals intelligence on the jury.
Well,
spy on them, and harass them.
They do what they do. It's a natural state of things.
So why don't we change our country's name to Israel? I mean, I don't understand why we haven't done that.
Name's taken.
Yeah.
Well, Israel too. I don't know.
New.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question of why we allow this shit.
I don't understand it. I just don't.
I think a lot of it is we're just getting wise to it. And, something will click into gear and we'll be able to, I know I'm optimistic about application of RICO in certain strategic places that can really knock the wind out of the sails. I mean, you're never going to rip it up for good, but at least to the point where we can get caught up prosecutorially.
I just want to know how
we aren't our own country. I don't understand how any other country has control over us.
It's like the one six-sided star, just like slaves, the 55-sided stars. Kind of is how I look at it.
Well, it's people who run the country that are, the people that are not supposed to let us be owned by anyone else are the ones who allow us to be.
Hey, could I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Hey, thanks. So I don't know, I've been listening to your spaces for a while. It's really interesting, and I'm not super knowledgeable,
Welcome.
but I was really right wing, and I was really into the conspiracy stuff, and not really QAnon too much, but a little bit. But I find a lot of what you guys talk about really interesting, really compelling, and kind of being open to something new, maybe the Democrats, maybe something else, I don't know, but it's really interesting and good for as someone who is right wing. And so yeah, it's really compelling, but I'm trying to understand. What'd you say?
What sullied you on a lot of the right wing stuff?
Well, I found Richard Spencer because I knew who he was from years ago, but then I found him again as he kind of started talking about stuff on Twitter again. And then I think I found you from one of those spaces or another thing. But I think it was really like Richard Spencer's thoughts on Christianity. Because I was trying to be Christian for the last like half a year, I would say, like really trying. And I was listening to Vox Day, if you know who that is, and I was just like, it was a total dead end, and I was like, oh no, this is actually just it might just be complete nonsense. And but so that's kind of a weird route for me. Anyway, the point is, I'm trying to understand, like when the video in the jumbotron is Gavin Newsom, and it can be kind of compared to Joe Biden in the way that he talks about certain things, and like when I understand how he's coming down on Ron DeSantis. Like I think he's right in what he's saying in that video, but what is like maybe it's just politics and that's just over my head. But like when Joe Biden and Gavin Newsom are talking about like immigration, they're not. I'm just trying to understand the Democrat way of maybe just communicating or their way of politicking, and how being like not really being against are they against immigration, or that's just something I haven't really understood yet. Maybe it's just kind of over my head.
Well, I remember being told that if Joe Biden got elected, he would turn all the illegal aliens into citizens. Right? And that clearly hasn't happened yet.
Well, I think it's important that we differentiate the illegal aliens who may assimilate if we were to make them citizens, and the illegal aliens who came here on visa overstays, on visas and trips financed by China and Israel, and now just won't leave.
Yep.
Yeah, it's much more complicated than most people explain.
Yes.
On either side, it's so much more complicated.
Yes, I think that's exactly right.
And at one point, visa overstays accounted for up to about half of the illegal immigrant problem. So,
well, I went through the process. My husband is from another country, and most people don't even understand the simple part of it. So I can't imagine them understanding more than that.
I'm actually right now like technically an illegal immigrant of Colombia because I had to. I was supposed to leave Saturday, but I got an email from the embassy Friday for an appointment to get like the certification of birth abroad from the embassy. So I figured I'd just go to the immigration department Monday. So I go into the Colombian immigration department and they fine me like 1,000,000 pesos, but I can't pay it for like 4 days. So like technically, I think I'm like an illegal immigrant until I can like they finish their administrative process and I can pay them. But they said they'd extend me, like it wasn't that big of a deal. But just But I was going to ask, because I don't vote, man. I'm like too poor, too stupid, whatever. I don't see the point in voting where I'm at in my life. So I'm like, I don't think like I'm Republican or Democrat. I don't know like
By the way,
which
I
way
think
I
that's
lean.
perfectly a legitimate way of being.
Yeah, I
No,
mean, I just think it's stupid because it's like all a scam anyway, based off of like that's just my perception, and this is like a really flawed perception. And I'm trying to like, it might not be flawed. Maybe you can
no, I'll tell you,
shed
I've
some light on it.
changed. I've come to the view that voting is not the only civic participation. It's an important one, but it's not the only one.
Yeah, and then the thing that gets me about the two-party system is it's like it's almost like a. And I just want to preface this. I hate that I have to preface this by like saying this. Like, I when I criticize like Israelis or the Jewish power structure, it doesn't mean like all Jews, but like when I look at the dichotomy of politics, since I've been alive, the only thing that they really have in common, in my opinion, is like this that they'll always support Israel one way or another, like over us. Like, and I don't mean to like blame Jews for that or whatever, but like it just seems like the one thing the Republicans and the Democrats always have in common is like their support via tax money and like military aid, or just like kind of like influence, through that small country. And I don't know if you guys feel that way too. So that's why I kind of like don't really
Yeah,
get the divide.
I definitely think there's the Israeli problem, but I don't think it's the only problem. Obviously, I think it's a big problem, but I don't think it's the only one.
Oh, we have an
Yeah, no,
American
I
problem.
agree. Yeah, no, obviously, like, we're being divided and conquered by outside influences, and then the Russian thing and the Chinese thing makes sense too. I was kind of like looked at it like lopsided, I guess. Like, not to blame Israel, but it just seems like they're the only ones that really benefit more so than anyone else through that
There's
like
certainly
divide
an
and conquer of
element.
our
There's
system.
certainly an element of that where they definitely benefit a lot. I think though maybe we should close it out because I have to get up in a few hours. Um, so I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight, and we'll kind of do this again tomorrow night, and maybe we'll have Jeremy or some other folks speak and kind of go about it. But good to have everybody here, and I hope you have a lovely Thursday wherever you find yourself, and do stay in touch in the DMs and check out my Substack. It's free. I've written a lot about some of the stuff on Obama most recently, and on Christie and on others. So I try to do it. Try to put stuff there that you won't read anywhere else. It's always important, I think. I think I might do something on this space lasers thing because I think that's an important thing to think about. So I don't know, but in any event, have a good night and chat soon.